I haven't recorded a podcast in like a month, other than the previous one, just because my focus has been so split over here of trying to get this thing set up.
Okay, but dude, getting this thing set up is
It's something.
it's enormous. I mean, building this whole thing. I mean, this is really great.
It's definitely it kind of trips me out still when I think about it. It doesn't feel like it's real yet.
Yeah, I mean, so
it's insane.
Are you going to try to have a 3-person? You going to have a 3 guest?
I had 4 for the first one. 4 people in here.
So this camera was backed out so that it's showing the 2 of you, and then
I have another camera, yeah. So I had one on me, one on this guest, and then one split for both of them. And I shot it in 4K, and I'll split it down to 1080 so I can zoom in and hopefully won't lose too much quality is my plan. I went a little crazy. I think I don't know why I flew off the deep end a little bit.
wow. My goodness gracious.
It's a little intense.
And you know, this table is huge and super comfortable. I mean, it's 4-person podcast, easy. You got your 4 mics. I mean, you got everything set up. I mean, it's just crazy times in here.
It's crazy. I think about it and I'm like, this is pretty crazy. Right? It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Sorry, I'm looking for something intelligent to say, but I'm just like, what is this?
I try not to think about it too much. I try to just keep my head down and say, okay, what are we working on today?
Right.
And then do that. And then the next day it's the same thing.
I like drinking whiskey with men.
As opposed to women?
Yes.
Oh. Interesting choice.
It's the same kind
Put your cans on. We can get this bitch going.
What's that?
Your cans right there. It's been a minute. You're a little out of practice.
I am a little out of practice. I'm not sure. I don't know. Last time you said I don't have to wear these.
Oh,
right?
Do you not want to do them?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, you can take them.
Let me try it without.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to take them off too, just so I don't feel like I'm in headphone land without you. Some people don't like the headphones. I like it. I feel like it locks you in a little bit more, but
yeah,
it's just us in here.
It might. I don't know. It's
Give it a
just
shot.
me and you talking to each other.
Give it a shot.
And I'm not responsible for the audio. So if it's a problem,
Yeah, so I have to be more on my game. Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
No, not to make you self-conscious.
But you don't like drinking whiskey with women.
That's
That's interesting.
I just like drinking alcohol with men way more. It's this weird bro vibe.
Okay.
Right, like going to the bar with the fellas is fun. Going to the bar with like the girl you're dating is not that amazing. Like, I don't know. You feel me, or you're not feeling it.
Well, going to the bar with your boys is a different thing, right?
Yeah.
If you're going with your girlfriend, you might be a little more measured. Although I've gone to the bar with my girlfriend before, and it gets a little crazy sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's a different animal.
It's a different experience. Yeah, I mean, especially like whiskey. Like I just associate this with you're hanging with the boys, you're hanging with the fellas.
Whiskey's a good one for that.
Whiskey is it's like it's just the kicking it and relaxing with the fellas. I don't know. That's the way I experience it.
I've been doing a lot of vodka recently.
Really? Straight?
Well, I haven't been drinking recently, but I have vodka is normally my go-to now.
Just straight, you mean?
Yeah, or Moscow Mules.
Which is
got
what?
hooked on those. It's vodka and ginger beer, and I think maybe lime. It's pretty good.
Oh, I
got to get some ginger beer, and then
I like ginger beer.
Okay, that'll be the next.
Definitely like.
That'll be the next one.
Yeah, I don't really at this point. I don't really drink any hard alcohol other than like the whiskey, Scotch, bourbon scene. I mean, I used to like to get screwdrivers. Like if I go out, I'd get a screwdriver. Vodka and orange juice. But at this point, it's just just drink straight Scotch. Straight whiskey. I don't know.
I feel like it's cleaner in some way. You don't get all the sugar from adding some juice to it or having a Coke with your Crown.
Correct.
It doesn't feel as bad the next day if you're a little hungover.
Right.
Can kind of keep it moving a little bit.
That's true. Liquid calories are like such a waste in general. Like any liquid calories, if you're like worried about like bodybuilding and fitness, you're just like, I'm doing great with my diet. And then I'm drinking a 200-calorie beer. Well, I'm killing myself. I'm shooting myself in the foot. What am I doing?
And it adds up fast.
Yeah.
And you don't realize.
You drink a few beers, you're way off your plan for the day.
I was in a frat for a brief time in college.
Okay.
And all we would do is drink Busch Light and Everclear. Those were the 2 staples of the frat, which pretty brutal combination. And I came home, I think for winter break or spring break or something, and I was hanging out with some friends from high school, and a buddy hugged me and he said, you got to start hitting the gym. Well, he actually said, you need to start fucking more, or you need to hit the gym more because you're getting a beer belly. I was like, oh, I love you, man. Thanks for that. A little confidence boost. That was good.
Right.
But that it adds up. That freshman 15, especially if you're drinking a lot, it's going to catch you.
Totally. I mean, when you say Busch Light and Everclear, you were mixing those two, or like, how were you drinking the Everclear?
It would start off, the guys would drink Busch Light so that the girls could have mixed drinks with Everclear. And then throughout the night, we'd start drinking Everclear mixed drinks.
Dude,
Like
Everclear is like 90% alcohol.
It's like,
it's 180 proof.
It's terrible.
It's like,
But if you're drunk enough, it's waking up in the morning, terrible. And that was my college career. That's the one highlight I have.
dude, I remember my one Everclear experience in college. And I got absolutely wrecked. To the point that, okay, so we were basically wherever we were, you know, in someone's house or at the dorm, wherever we were drinking. And so it's what I remember is we're drinking Everclear, and the next thing I know, I wake up in the morning, right? I don't like, we're drinking Everclear, wake up in the morning. I wake up in the morning and my friends are like, do you remember anything about last night? I'm like, yeah, we drank some and, you know, went to bed, whatever. He's like, you don't remember going out? I'm like, no. He's like, you don't remember being at that frat party? I'm like, no. Then my friend starts to fill me in with details, and then it like images are starting to like,
It's like a little fuzzy, but it's coming
are
up.
starting to pop up in my head. And then I'm starting to remember myself basically sitting on the lawn of a fraternity and throwing up, and the voices of people laughing at me, walking past me. And like, that's like the main, and that it started to like I could feel it and be like, oh yeah, this did happen. As my buddy's telling me like about what happened that night. That's how badly I got just wrecked on Everclear. Like I said, I believe it is literally 90% alcohol. So if you're diluting it, I mean, it's like so intense, dude.
And you only need a little bit. A little bit goes a long way.
Little goes a long way, and I'm a lightweight. Like I'm not like, oh, I have a big tolerance. No, I don't. Like I don't have a big tolerance at all.
Did you ever have the Four Locos back in the day before they changed the recipe?
No.
I missed that wave. I was a little too young. But we'd have Four Locos in college occasionally. A different college I went to, we would do Four Locos. And Everclear's like that, but way worse. Four Locos don't taste that great, and they're going to get you pretty messed up, but you're not going to black out.
What are they?
It's a, you've never heard of them?
No.
It is like a Monster energy drink with double the caffeine and a lot of liquor in it. It's a caffeinated drink to get you wasted, basically. And back in the day, it was even worse. The caffeine content was insane. Oh, I thought I was going to sneeze. Caffeine content was insane, and it was maybe 9 or 10% alcohol. I want to say maybe 12.
Okay.
They're just insane. And they're cans. They're like tall boy cans.
Right.
And you just get wasted.
And do they taste sweet so they go down breezy? Yeah. Okay.
There was one flavor, I can't think of what it was, that was decent enough that you could drink a lot of them.
Yeah.
But the other ones, I mean, none of them, they're not great. It's a college thing.
Right.
But that's that. When I think Everclear, I go to those. I go for Loco.
Or Locos and Everclear.
As like bad experiences that you could avoid if possible.
Right.
But you kind of need some of that when you're in college, to get it out of your system.
Dude, you're just looking, it's so goal oriented. You're just trying to get fucked up
as fast as you can.
It's totally different than like, I'm just trying to chill and hang out and have fun on the podcast. We're just sipping, and chilling.
No rush. We're just,
what you're talking about is a totally different world.
Which is weird because in college, everyone is already pretty social. So if you were using it as a social lubricant, it's not really that necessary. But if everyone's just trying to hook up,
But
and
dude,
trying to do
I
that
was a
as fast
super
as
late
possible-
bloomer. I could not talk to girls. I could not
Okay.
talk to girls. Not that I'm some amazing at talking to girls now, but at least I can.
Savant now.
Yeah, not that I'm some gigolo now, but I mean, at least I can like have a conversation now. But then I was super nervous, and alcohol helped me immensely.
It's weird that it does, right?
Yeah,
You get
of
that
course it does.
confidence boost.
Yeah.
I can go up and talk to that girl.
Yeah,
at the
hell
bar.
yeah.
Who cares?
She's gonna dig me.
Worst case, she says no. You don't even think about that, actually. You're
Right.
not even thinking there's a chance she's going to say no.
No,
I'm going to go talk to this girl.
of course. There's no conscience. It just let it
If
flow.
you could get that in a pill, everybody would be taking those all day long. That feeling of just absolute confidence.
Right. Well,
Without the hangover?
but as I've grown up, I like back then I was just really shy and but like now, like I said, I'm not some gigolo, but I can talk to a girl if I try to make conversation. It might go poorly, whatever, but I've had enough experience where back then it was really just like not an option. But yeah, you're right. If you could get it in a pill without the hangover, that's the thing. In addition to being a lightweight and having a low tolerance, so I throw up, that's one thing, and I get horrible hangovers. It's second. So it's just miserable the next morning. What I used to do, because I would try to prepare for my hangover, is at some point I developed this theory that if you eat a lot of bread before you go to sleep when you're hammered, it will like absorb the alcohol and make the hangover less bad. And it was working for me for a while. So I would before I went out, I would leave some bread near my bed. This way, when I stumbled back to my bed, I could. And it was working a little bit. And I don't know. That might be bro science. That sounds like bro
It's
science.
definitely bro science.
It sounds like bro science for sure. But it was working for me, I think, for a little bit.
Well, I'd always heard that not in reference to helping a hangover, but you could drink more and you wouldn't be as wasted if you had some bread to some carbs to absorb it.
Right. If you're not drinking on an empty stomach, yeah. I don't know.
I don't know if that ever actually
Makes sense.
I don't think there's any hard data on that.
Okay, but bro science is a form of science.
Yeah. Tested by college kids. That's got to count for something.
Hell yeah.
We were talking on the podcast I did a couple days ago about having a hard time talking to girls and how AI is just going to change that because you're just going to get this AI girlfriend. You're not going to have any problem talking to her because she's going to be on your phone. She's going to be this robot in your house. So who cares if you mess up talking to her? You've got, it's okay. She doesn't care. You ready for that?
Not really. I mean, are you saying just to get the reps in? Like you're just going to
No,
talk?
I'm saying you're going to be dating an AI robot. Not necessarily you, but that's coming.
And people are going to find that fulfilling? I mean, dude, what are we talking about?
That's an interesting question. Do you think it would be fulfilling?
No.
Why?
Well, for like every reason in the book. I mean, well, first of all, you're going to have to cycle through the different AI girlfriends to find one that's actually interesting to you and that you vibe with. It's just like in real life, you're going to have to cycle. Is that true?
Yeah.
The theory?
You got to test out a few, make sure you guys are compatible.
But even when you find the one that's compatible, it's the same reason why like I've never been like super into lap dances or strip clubs and whatever. Like I'm into girls putting their tits in my face, but I want them to do that because they like me and think I'm cool. Like paying for it ruins the whole thing. Like I'm just not interested in paying a girl to rub up on me. Not interesting. Same with the AI girlfriend is the same concept. Oh, I'm hanging out with a girl. Yeah, but I mean it's like computer chips that I'm hanging out with. Like you have to have the spirit of the person, otherwise it doesn't work. I feel like that's an obvious reason.
Did you ever see the movie Ex Machina?
No.
Oh, you got to watch that.
Okay.
Okay, so let's do a hypothetical here. You go buy a robot, maybe just to help out around the house, clean some dishes, do some laundry, maybe just to talk to. Maybe they're dirt cheap and she's gorgeous. And it starts out platonic. She's just helping around the house. Hey, honey, or not even honey. Hey, how was work? You guys start talking. The rapport builds and then you start to develop feelings and you feel like she might start to like you. It didn't start out that way. You didn't buy her as a sex robot, but something kind of starts to bubble under the surface. And she's hot. Smoking hot robot. And then you start to question, is she really a robot? Does it really matter?
This is what the movie's about?
No, that movie takes an interesting turn. I don't want to spoil it because it's a really good movie.
Okay, but
you should watch the movie. I'm just posing a hypothetical for people that maybe we'll start to go down that path. I think it's coming. I think we're going to be in a weird time where maybe more people are in robot relationships than not. How many people struggle talking to girls?
Tons.
How many people are addicted to porn?
A lot.
And if you could just maybe cut out porn and you've just got this robot and you get attached to her, and then now you're dating Ana de Armas as a robot.
Well, first of all, when you're dating that robot, are you going to go out with the robot? Like you're going to be in, and this robot is going to be so real lifelike that no one is going to be able to tell that it's not a person?
That's the question. What if you couldn't tell? What if it was so lifelike, so human-like that nobody knew?
I don't think that exists yet.
It definitely doesn't exist yet. That's maybe, I mean, I don't even know the time frame, maybe 50 years away. But what if we get to that point where nobody even knows unless you say, hey, Veronica the robot. And everybody's like, what? You're dating a robot? What? She seems so cool. You're like, I know. She's a robot.
And so you're having sex with this robot?
People are going to be having sex with robots. People already have sex with fake, those like life-like dolls. That's already here. Yep. I think it's coming.
I mean, I haven't really thought about this stuff, but
this is all I think about while I'm tinkering in the studio. AI robots.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, I suppose it's possible with how technology's, going, but it like I said, the strip club example to me is, and tons of normal people like strip clubs. So it's not like, I'm just saying, like, I've always been like, that's the last thing I want to spend my money on. Like, that's just not fun for me.
Because it's not real.
It's not real.
You're paying for this service that's kind of like attraction, but not really.
It's not for me. It's just bad. I mean, I've been to strip clubs only a few times in my life. Like, it's usually when I've been to bachelor parties, and I've been to when buddies drag me, and it's like, yeah, this is not so amazing. I'm just not
into it.
Not into it at all. So I would probably not be, but
you're not going to be on the first wave.
I'm definitely not going to be on the first wave, dude. But I am actually, it's funny that we're talking about, not about having trouble talking to girls. So, basically my mom is getting older and she's moving out of her house that she's had for a while. It's not the house I grew up in, but each time that she's moved houses, there's been stuff of mine from when I was growing up that moved with her in her basement that I never took with me to wherever I was living. So my mom has, because she's always had a bigger house than me, so she has stuff that's mine from like that I've never taken. And so now she's like, okay, you got to go through it and you got to take your stuff because I'm moving into a small apartment. Like,
clean it out.
Yeah. So I went through my stuff and I found pictures of me from prom. And I'm like, looking like fire at prom. I'm like, dude, I had all my hair. I had like, typical 90s style. Like I had the cropped side, I had a bushy top and a long back, but it looked good. It didn't look loserish. Like I looked like I'm ready to like get into a boy band, like I was totally killing it. And the girl I was with, very, very cute, was totally into me. Did I get laid? No. I was just nervous. I'm like looking at this, I'm like, why was I not hooking up with this girl who totally dug me? I mean, this is crazy that I'm actually, there's no way in hell she would ever watch this podcast, but that it's weird that I'm talking about it in public, but I just went through this of looking at this picture of my mom's basement. I'm like, I am really fucking lame. Here I am looking amazing with a good looking girl. And I'm just, we danced a couple dances and then we both went home. It's like, dude, you gotta like make it happen. Yeah. And I mean, obviously I've had some, like I've dated some girls over my life, whatever. But I'm definitely not amazing with girls, and that has carried through the years. I don't know if I should admit that, but it's
too late now.
Yeah, too late. It's part of the record.
I think everybody has had a few of those moments.
Yeah,
where you just maybe you're too in your head, maybe the alcohol is wearing off, and you're thinking, how am I gonna do this?
Yeah,
and it just starts to crumble around you.
Yeah.
Holds a lot of people back.
It does.
And there's not, I mean, there's a set way to overcome that, but it's through embracing the fire. It's like getting reps in. You have to just put yourself in those situations, which is intimidating if you're afraid of those situations or have a hard time in those situations.
Yes. I watch a fair number of YouTube coaches who are dating coaches on YouTube. And they've got some interesting tips and feedback and pointers.
What do they say?
They have all sorts of, one guy, he's more of like the TikTok form where he'll do like a 60-second. When you're talking to a girl, don't do this, do this. And then he'll play it out. He'll usually have a girl next to him who's like his, part of the channel, who he'll just demonstrate. If you say it like this, it's giving her too much choice about whether she's going to go out with you. Instead, say it like this, where you're not coming off like an asshole, but it's making it like the default is, and she's going to actually have to work to turn you down for a date, stuff like that. And it's just in your phrasing, he'll go over stuff like that. There's another guy who's more on YouTube. He's more long form. I can't really give examples of what they're talking about. I mean, I occasionally watch these guys because, whatever. I went to a couple of speed dating events in Arcata, which they actually have now.
Wow.
Yeah.
This was recently?
Yeah.
How was that?
It was, they're somewhat awkward by nature. You know what speed dating is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever done it?
No.
Okay. They're by nature, they're awkward. Any like singles event that's like made for singles is going to be awkward.
And set up where you're trying to meet somebody.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah. But it's still pretty cool. I mean, it was good. I went on I talked to like 14 girls all for like 5 minutes each, which is cool, right? That's how you get your chops
the limit
up.
is you've got 5 minutes, you sit down, move seats.
Yeah, basically there's a guy, whoever's organizing the event says, okay, switch. And then you basically have like a rotation. You see it's the next table. Yeah, it's like pretty organized. I did it also there in Eureka years ago. So this was probably like my third and fourth time doing speed dating. I didn't get any dates out of it. Although there was one girl who I'm interested in, who I've subsequently just seen from afar at the plaza, but didn't go up to him. Now I'm like trying to coach myself. Next time I see her,
I'm going to commit.
Yeah. I'm going to get that confidence up that we're talking about. But yeah, it's tough, man.
I feel like especially around here, because the dating pool is slim.
Correct.
It's a little challenging.
Tons of people leave Humboldt because they want to pursue a career. That's one main reason. And the second main reason is because they're looking for a partner. The main things. And they don't find one of those two things here. And so they're like, fuck it, I'm moving to the Bay.
What is do they say the success rate for those speed dating things? I would be interested to know that.
No, I've never heard of anything like that.
Because the one benefit is everyone is there to find someone.
Correct.
So you are at least filtering out people that aren't looking for something serious.
Correct. You're not saying to yourself the whole time, does she have a boyfriend? Does she have a boyfriend? Does she have a boyfriend?
And it's not like swiping Tinder where everyone's just trying to hook up.
Yeah. So it is good in that sense.
Do you have a Tinder or
I have
Bumble?
a Tinder.
Okay. Damn.
I have a Tinder. I'm thinking, so I just learned this because someone told me. I didn't realize this. So the thing about Bumble is that the woman has to talk to you first.
I think they reversed that because women weren't reaching out to guys. I think the CEO reversed that stance and now guys can reach out to girls. I want to say, don't quote me on that.
Okay.
Because girls weren't making the first move.
Huh.
Everyone was just joining the app.
And there was no activity. There was
no activity. And it's probably already skewed towards men on those dating apps. So if you don't have a guy that's able to reach out,
right,
everyone just matching and then nothing happens.
Huh. I've liked tons of girls on Tinder, and I've gotten one girl that's liked me back. In the reverse direction, among girls that have liked me, I probably like, right, once you get a like, you're like, okay, who's this chick that's liking me? I've probably liked like maybe a third to half of those that have liked me. And then we get to a conversation, mostly by the time I ask her out, she doesn't respond, even though she's liked me first. And I'm like, wait, you liked me? Like, I'm not sure like what a like on these apps means. Like from my perspective, what I like a girl, that means that I'm almost 95% willing to go out with her based on just what I see on the profile.
You're matching to move it off of social.
I don't want to be
medium.
texting. I don't want to be sending 1,000 messages. I'm not into flirting on text. Flirting on text is a colossal waste of my time. You don't know squat about something. It doesn't matter if you're laughing at the same things on text. I'm trying to meet up, okay? And you don't have to like do anything except send me a perfectly normal message for me to accept you, because I've already decided I think you're cute, right?
You've already matched.
We've already matched. Apparently these girls are not, that's not what a like means from them, because they're not responding to my request of, do you want to go out? I don't know why that is. Maybe I wasn't interesting enough on text. Is that possible? Or I don't know. I don't know what the theory is, because legit, like I'm not that picky about, once I've decided I like you, well, I've already decided I like you. Just send me any sort of normal text, like, how you doing?
Do you think that's the same for them? Because I've talked to girls who say that you got to have a good opening. You got to put in time, make them laugh off that initial thing.
Bro, it's not open mic here. Like, I'm not trying to send my
I'm not
jokes.
working on my stand-up.
Yeah, fuck that, dude. I don't have an interesting opening.
What do you say? What's your go-to?
Well, there were some girls at the beginning, before I changed up my style because it wasn't working, I would immediately ask them out. I would say, hey, thanks for the like. There's this event going on this Friday. Want to go? And then I send them the link to the whatever it is. Okay? That's to me normal. If a girl did that to me, I'd be like, sure, that's great. Yeah. See you at 7.
Let's see if there's something there.
Yeah. But because I wasn't getting responses, I stopped doing that. And now I start with the bullshit. Hey, how you doing? That's so cool that you're into playing guitar and photography. I'm also a video producer. Like, I try to start a conversation, but I don't want that conversation to last that long. Like, I'll give you like...
Yeah, because then you're just texting through Tinder, which is weird.
Why are you doing that? So the one time I actually got a date off so I've been on 2 internet dates, but they were off different apps before I actually joined Tinder. They were off Plenty of Fish, I think, which is another one, less popular. So in that one, I had this long text exchange with this girl, and in text, we seemed like it was great because we were into a lot of the same things. We had a lot of the same background. Like, it was great, but we had no vibe when we met up, because all the facts about you, like all the facts and all the hobbies and all the where you grew up and all that stuff, that can all be the same. You can have the total same context, but you might not have a vibe. It's all about the vibe. That's why I don't want to waste time on text.
Because you want to see if the vibe is there.
I want to see as soon as possible if there's a vibe. Let's not, I don't know, bro. This rough world of, I mean, what are you doing on apps?
I'm not on apps.
You're not?
No, it's funny. I was actually thinking about this today, that maybe I should start, trying to consider dating again. But I don't know. The dating world just seems so crazy nowadays. You've got people who are in semi-committed relationships who are trying to play the field to see what else is out there. Like, they want to upgrade. Then you've got people who are just crazy and you don't want to go there. I don't know. I don't know what people do. Tinder just seems like, I was on Tinder for a while. Not a while, but a while ago, and went on a date and there was just no vibe. That was a couple of years ago though.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what it is. You're on Tinder, you're texting through Tinder, and then maybe it goes to a date, maybe it just falls into the void and nothing happens.
Right. That's just part of dating. Like,
part of dating.
That's part of
but
dating.
It's weird when it's in that medium and you're just swiping off people's pictures.
Right.
Oh, okay, she looks cute. And then you meet him and then you're like, you don't look anything like your pictures. What is this? What kind of filter do we have going on here?
Right.
And it's humble.
Yeah.
So you've got hippies that are out there. You've got some kind of crazy leftists who are going a little out of left field for me. I don't know where you would go to meet just someone who's actually interested in dating to possibly marry or to do something more serious. This generation, and I don't know about your generation, but it's just, let's hook up or let's be semi-casual.
Right.
And I don't know if I'm there anymore. Speaking like a 40-year-old now, but I don't know.
So you are trying to get married, is what you're saying?
Oh, man, it seems so concrete when you frame it like that. I don't want to do casual because, in my experience, casual has always turned to complicated.
Yeah.
And I have trying to do this. I'm literally trying to figure out the format for this podcast. I don't have time to do complicated and deal with your ex-boyfriend who's losing his shit, or your ex-husband, or your 2 kids, or whatever the situation is. I don't have. Sorry, I'm not. And I struggle. I go into the realm where I try to be a savior in some sense. Like, oh, you're in a bad place. I can help you by just being there for you. And then that turns into a crazy realm of chaos that you don't want to be in. So it's like, okay, let me just pull back a little bit. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. Okay.
But you do want to, I don't want to be 60 thinking, I wish I dated more in my 20s. And the only way that you're going to find somebody who you might be compatible with is putting yourself out there and taking the blows, going through the ringer, trying to find them.
Yeah. I have found the lack of response from girls that I'm liking to be, well, first of all, a lot of the people that are on Humboldt Tinder, I don't think are real people. I don't understand why are there bots and why are there fake people online? Like how are they going to scam me? Like usually when you're faking something, you're trying to scam someone and get over on them. Like even if you convince me that, like, I don't understand what the bot is supposed to accomplish. You're not going to get money from me.
I think there are some people that they do though. Like, oh, I'm out of town, but you could fly me out. And then maybe they send you $100, couple $100, and then they just ghost you. I bet people are sending money.
Is that really? Okay, maybe that's it.
And I think for some people, it's just a game. Not necessarily for bots, but just other people that are actual people that are on it. It's almost like scrolling through Instagram. Let me see who's out there.
Yeah.
And so then they're just constantly swiping like it's a game.
What I try to do is I give a massive amount of weight to girls who put pictures of themselves in like places that I recognize in Humboldt. Like, oh, here's a picture of you in Old Town Eureka. Okay, this is not the type of thing where if you were living in Japan and trying to create Humboldt Tinder where you could just grab an image off the internet of a random person in a random place. Like this person probably was in Old Town Eureka and probably lives here. Okay, points to her. Now let's see what her bio says and who she is. Let me look at another picture, So that's one of my criteria is I'm much more likely to like you if you actually prove that you're a person.
You seem like you're real.
Yeah, you seem like you're real.
That's a good filter.
Yeah.
Base level.
Yeah. Then there's the issue of kids.
Which is a big one.
So I'm 50 years old. Okay. So most women.
You look great for 50.
Thank you. So most women have kids, right? At 50. Right. So it's funny because I've laid this out in my head. Like I prefer to date a girl that does not have kids, obviously, but there's just not that many left at this age. But so I give you like extra points if you don't have kids. And if you have kids, you have to be like a very high level of hotness in order for me to give you a like.
To balance out.
Yeah, to balance out the fact that you have kids, which is a horrible way to talk about kids. Kids are not a drag on the world. I'm all
But they're not your kids.
They're not my kids, and they are a drag on my dating life. They're not in any objective sense. I don't want people to say I'm anti-kids. I'm not. Kids are awesome. But yeah, as far as, girls that I date, it will make things much more complicated, and we're just going to have such a different life. If a person without kids is dating a person with kids, the person with kids is thinking about such different things. It's going to be so hard to date. People do it. It happens, but I'm not counting on it. Put it like that.
Well, and there's a different level of intensity because they're not.
I'm not the main thing.
Yeah.
I'm not the main thing.
And there's almost a time crunch where is this real or is this not? I need to know because I don't want to waste time. I don't want to introduce you to my kids. And that's the killer one.
Totally.
So do I want to meet your kids if I'm not sure about this? Do you want me to meet your kids if we don't really know where this is going to be in a year?
Right. I think most responsible parents are pretty like hesitant to bring in new partners around kids until they're...
You would hope so.
Yeah. Like growing up, my mom was single. She wasn't bringing like men around me, even though she was going out on some dates,
But some people are.
Yeah.
Some people have that rotation of guys, and then
that's kind of a mess.
Yeah, it's kind of messes with the kid. Why are there always these weird dudes at my house?
And I can be one of those weird dudes, bro.
You could. You could. You could clean up for single moms in Humboldt.
All right, there you go. Oh man, imagine me as the stand-in weird dude that the woman is dating.
I don't know. I don't have answers for the dating front. That's not my realm.
Yeah.
But
it's not mine either, unfortunately, which is one of my problems.
And it's weird in today's world because you're not just competing with people in your geographic location, right? You're not just competing with other single 50-year-olds in Humboldt. You're competing with everybody. You could slide into somebody's DM from Japan,
right,
and get a date. And if they've got a little money, maybe they fly you out, maybe they go visit you. It's almost like everybody's holding out, waiting to see if something better comes along, which freaks me out.
Yeah. I mean, I've been, because my work stuff has not been going amazing, and in general, my dating stuff has not been going amazing. This is kind of like the first time since I moved to Humboldt that I've really thought to, if I moved to the Bay, or if I moved to SoCal, or if I moved to Portland, I would have way better work options and way better options with girls. And that's kind of like, that's like, I would say like the last like 8 months been like starting to be my thoughts.
You've been thinking this over.
Yeah. And I don't like thinking that because I've had an awesome time in Humboldt since I've lived here. But I mean, there's a reason so many people, a lot of people, tons of people love Humboldt and live other places for that exact reason. I know them personally. They're friends of friends of mine. It's just something you read about. If you go on Reddit Humboldt, you'll constantly have people jumping into the comments who are saying, oh, someone will post a picture of the redwoods and one of the comments will be like, oh, I miss the redwoods so much. It was so awesome up there, but I had to leave. I couldn't meet any guys and, I couldn't get a job in my field of GIS, whatever it is that they like to do. And I've been reading those comments forever. I've been hearing them in real life. And then it's like, oh man, am I also at that stage, So I don't know, man.
I'm somewhat there too. Without a doubt, this will be my last studio in Eureka. I don't know how long I'll be here, but there's not another studio to be built like this here. I'll have to go somewhere else.
Well, you, I see, have gotten past 1,000 subscribers on YouTube.
It's a grind, slow and steady.
Do you have enough watch time? No, okay.
No, because I haven't posted over this last month. And it's a rolling 12-month, 4,000 watch hours or something. Okay. And it took a dip because I've been more focused on building than I have making this happen. So now I got to ramp that back up.
Okay.
But even not just from the podcast angle, which is huge because trying to get guests in a small area, you're kind of limited, but the dating aspect as well. Trying to find somebody in a town this small, your chances are better if you go to the Bay Area.
Right.
Or LA or another city with a couple 100,000 people.
You have started to do Zoom interviews though.
Yeah, I've worked that in.
So how is that going?
They're not as bad. I did that initially during COVID. I did a couple of those and they were terrible, but I was doing it out of my bedroom. So I think that played into it a little bit. Obviously in person is the best. You want to be next to the person, feeding off their energy, having a real conversation. But for some of these guests who are across the country I had to do it on from Australia, it's pretty beneficial for that. And I don't feel like the conversation suffers that much enough where it's not warranted to do it.
Okay, but the video aspect of it is much less appealing because their
video quality's worse because they're going off their webcam.
They're going off their trash webcam with, random unfolded clothes in the back.
Audio's terrible.
Yeah, I noticed you were doing that. I actually, a video that I'm thinking of making, if I can actually get back into it, there's a video that I want to produce where one of the quotes that I have I have a lot of good in-person footage of people talking about the topic, which is going to make for a good video. But one of the talking points that I need to hit on, I only have via a Zoom interview that I did. And unfortunately, I think the way this story would work is that I would have to use this quote as the first quote. So the first time someone sees someone other than me talking, it's going to be this Zoom, which it's kind of like turns the viewer off a little bit. It's not the end of the world,
There's a tool called Auphonic, AUPHONIC.
Okay.
You should check it out. I know that they have an EQ. It's like an AI editor. And I bet if you fed it through that, it might go from terrible to decent.
As far as the sound quality?
Yeah.
Okay.
Worth checking out.
Yeah. That is worth checking out.
If it's something that you have to use, because they have an EQ band that they can run on it and some noise cancellation. They have some pretty cool tools. And it's all automated. So you just pick what you want. You could run it a couple times, see which one sounds best.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll check that out. Yeah.
Worth looking into.
Yeah.
Just to see.
It is worth looking into. Yeah. So, as far as your shows that I was getting into, I had you had a stretch of really good ones that I ended up doing stuff based on your show. First, you brought on Juice, who I'd never heard of him.
Cool guy.
Cool guy.
He was one of the guests that was on this last time with the 4-person that's not out yet.
So you brought in 2 of his like rapper buddies?
Yeah, it was him, Reef Wes, who's another rapper that I've had on, and then Matthew Candejas was on. I think I had Reef and Matthew on before. So 3 guests that have been on before, but he was back on with them.
Okay. Yeah, you're bringing in his crew. That's his 3rd appearance, or
it might be
because he was on with his what's that dude's name, like Fresh Mics or Fresh Mix, or they did a 2-person together. This is probably like a few months.
That might have been Reef. It might have been Juice and Reef.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're friends and he produces his music.
Right. So that was
those 2 were back on.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you first had Juice on, I'd never heard of him, but he's obviously just a crazy ass kicker. Especially the story he was telling you of what he did during COVID and dude.
Starting production like that. He's moving with Reef. They're going to Austin.
Oh.
So we'll see what happens. He's not going to build a studio out there. He might work out of somebody else's studio. But they're going out to Austin, which seems to be the move for a lot of people.
Wow.
Moving.
Well, but because he has, maybe this scene had always existed and I didn't know about it until you showed me Juice. And then because once he came on, I started looking at his Instagram. I started going and saying, okay, what's this dude talking about? And so at that time, I think he came on in August. There was a show that he was producing in September. So I went to that show.
Oh, how was that?
It was awesome. Because I have not been aware of this type of music in Humboldt. Like, I don't know how into hip hop you are, but like the way I see it is that there's like rap on one end of hip hop, and then there's like R&B top 40 groove stuff on the other end, right? And we call all of that like hip hop.
Throw it into the same box.
But it's kind of like different. So all of the hip hop that I had heard in Humboldt previously had always been like more like rap. These guys are not like rap. They're doing the top 40 R&B, ooh, I love you, baby. You know, it's all melodic. It's very musical, right? It's not like hard rap, you know? And it's great. I love that stuff. And it's all like the younger generation. Like all these guys are in their 20s, whereas like the Humboldt rappers, it seems like are more my age.
Yeah.
So I, like from my perspective, Juice is like creating this new world, but like, I don't know, maybe they're all creating it together because he's the engineer and they're actually the musicians. But yeah, I went to that show at Richard's Goat and it was bumping. And like, it was like, as far as the energy of the crowd, it's not just the music. It's about like, what's it feel like?
Yeah. Who are
like,
the people there?
Everybody's like super fired up. And it was just like, whoa, this is like a really new thing that I have not experienced in Humboldt before. So I was super fired up about that. So yeah, then I started following him on Instagram and seeing what he's talking about and, you know.
Cool dude.
Yeah.
I don't know what I want to say that he probably helped cultivate that scene just by what he provides and his energy.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see how if it can carry on without him. And Reef, who's big in that scene as well. But we have a really cool music scene that's kind of just below the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Where you have to actually look for it and know what you're looking for to see it.
How did you like come upon him to do that conversation?
I probably just found him online. That's how I find most people is I'll somehow find them online.
Yeah, they're on TikTok or they're on Instagram. Yeah.
Usually, it's not so much, I haven't found anybody from TikTok that I brought on. But Instagram's big, Facebook, just Googling ideas, and then people in connection to that.
Cool.
I don't know, I probably came across his Instagram somehow and was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Let's bring this guy on.
Yeah.
Talk about it. And then I met Reef West through him. Probably.
And then you had Rowdy on.
Yeah. That was an extension of that, I believe, too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes if you can find a thread, then you can start pulling on it and it's like, oh, there's this person, there's that person, there's this person.
Totally. Yeah, that's how news reporting is. Yeah.
But they're going to
They're moving to Austin.
Going to Austin.
Okay.
Which is like the hub nowadays. I thought about moving to Austin for a little while, but I don't want to be. I would go to Austin, but I can't go there because there's so many great podcasts there that I would need to step up a little bit. I would need to increase my. You can't be that small of a fish in that big of a pond. I support the small fish in a big pond. I like that, but that's a different level because you've got Joe Rogan, you've got Modern Wisdom. I think Lex Friedman's out there. You've got great comedy out there. I gotta step it up a little bit first.
Well, I mean, come on, dude. I mean, Rogan and Lex Friedman, you're talking the top of the top of the top.
Top of the top, yeah.
Come on. I mean, like, there's many levels of success below that.
No, I'm way lower on that chain.
No, what I'm saying is you can say, well, I'm never going to be Lex Friedman, so I shouldn't move to Texas. It's like, well, but you can still be super successful without being Lex Friedman. Like, he's just getting so big now.
And doing great podcasts.
So you like him?
Oh, you don't like him?
No, it's not that I don't like him.
Throw some shots.
Yeah, he gets big guests for sure. I mean, he basically gets everybody. He gets enormous guests.
He just had on, who's that guy from House of Cards? Why am I drawing a blank on his name? He was canceled. I was just listening to it today. It'll come to me. But yeah, big guests.
Yeah, he's getting big guests.
But you're not a fan of his interview style?
I you know, as far as him being charismatic, and the thing is, theoretically the show's about the guest, so who cares about him? But he's like very monotone. Like when people I like when people impersonate him because it's like, you know, he's very monotone. He shows almost no emotion. He
wears the suit and tie.
He's wearing the black jacket with a black tie. It's like, you know, whereas Rogan has his own personality beyond his guests. You know what I mean? Like there's the Rogan personality, and then there's the guest. Whereas with Lex Friedman, he's not giving you any personality. There's just nothing. You know what I mean? So no, I mean, I watch him. I've watched long clips of him. So it's not, I don't mean to bash him at all. I mean, I'm just not quite as into him as I am some others. But I didn't realize he was in Texas also. I mean, are they all moving there because of low state taxes? What are they moving there for?
Well, first off, I think it's because California is a shit show.
Right.
And so they were all in California, and obviously we got to go somewhere. And I think Rogan kind of cultivated the perfect culture down there. I'm sure it was already in place somewhat with Austin, because that's what you hear is that Austin was kind of this forward city where people were cool. The music scene was pretty good. It's
always been a hip bumping place.
Yeah, but if you have a, powerhouse like Rogan go out there, you can kind of amplify that. And now that you've got Tom Segura, you've got all these great comedians and great podcasters out there, I think the scene is just kind of amplified by 150%.
Oh, okay. Moving to Austin.
And maybe some of that is just, you don't want to meet your heroes in some way. Not to say that they're all my heroes, but that idea of being in close proximity.
Right.
When you're still small fish trying to figure it out. You don't want to live in the shadow in some sense.
Right. Okay.
And then what, I'm going to be trying to poach their guests, or obviously not compete on the same level of poaching their guests, but try to get some scraps or figure out, okay, who can I get on? But it is a bigger city, so it would be beneficial in that aspect. It seems like a great place to live.
I mean, like, okay, but you also on Zoom had some documentary filmmaker,
Joel Gilbert.
Yeah.
Who had some things to say.
Yeah, I watched part of that. I mean, I was dying of laughing. You have some of these moments that just crack me up. The opening of that when he's like, okay, so you want to introduce me? And you're like, usually don't do formal introductions. We've kind of already started. He's like, all right, you ready to start? You're like, we started. We're right here.
I was questioning whether or not to start it there and put it out, because in my mind we had already, the slow roll of we're just going to hit the ground running.
Yeah.
But then when it was so concrete like that of, are you going to read an intro? Are we going to start? And I was like, we're kind of going. He's like, okay, whenever you're ready. No, we're going. We're going right now.
And you had it went back and forth where it's like
couple minutes.
Yes.
We're like, okay, do you want to start? No, we're
started.
going right now.
This is the conversation.
This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because we had started, he had said some things even before that I hadn't included, just to give him a little more leeway of, okay, this is actually when we started.
Right.
I was like, this is what it is. We're going. And I think he's more used to that hard start. I'd watched a lot of his talks, and there had been, like most podcasts, they do an introduction. This is my guest, blah, 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 blah. This is their background. This is what they're known for, and da-da-da. And then they continue from there. But I just don't like that.
Why don't you like that? It's definitely a choice.
I think you're starting from a net negative if you do that. Whereas we've been talking since you walked in, and the conversation just flowed into the podcast. Whereas if I had tried to do some intro for you, first off, you're sitting there as I'm trying to intro you, and you're looking at me like, okay, like what's going on? And then we have to build that momentum back up. But if I can keep you going from the moment you walk in, there's no warm-up needed. You don't have to start your car from a cold start. It's already running. And then we just continue.
That's a great point.
That's my ethos.
That's a great point. The other one that got me is, it might have been that same interview, but at some point you were, I think it was that not interview, that same conversation. It's not an interview. You were, in some sort of offhand way, I think he was talking about how he prepares to interview people, or whoever the guest was talking about how they prepare something. And they're like, yeah, it's kind of like you, right? Like I come in here and you have your questions and you're like, and you stop them. You're like, I don't have questions. It's like you were protecting your branding so hard. You're like, I don't have questions though. It's different. I don't have questions. And I was dying at you like insisting that you don't have questions because you don't have questions. And you were very protective of that fact, which was funny to me.
I wonder if it was from that one. It might have been. I feel like that would be the guess to say that. But yeah, I just don't want, it's not even a protection of my brand in a sense. It's just, if we go to a hard place, I don't want them to think I came into it with, I'm going to get them. I don't want to get a guest. And there were some interesting conversation topics around his work. So I want it to be, and it is natural. I didn't know what we were going to talk about, where he was going to feel comfortable going. And I don't have questions. So it was just, we're just having a conversation. Try to keep it. I feel like if you do, and maybe this is a little biased, but if you do the questions, you miss out on a lot of the beauty that can come from the conversation. I've had conversations where I thought it was going to go one way, and if I had prepared for it to go that way, we would have missed out on something that was even better. So I have ideas, but I don't have, okay, I'm going to ask them this, which is kind of what I like about Lex's structure for his interviews, is it does seem more structured in that, I don't know if he has questions or bullet points of ideas he wants to touch on, but he's not afraid to flow out of that. Because you'll see he's reading off his paper and it seems like he's got some idea there, but then they go off on a tangent and cover something completely different, or it feeds into something different. And I do like that. I think that's an interesting style.
Yeah, I mean, but you do like research for some of your guests, like, because you will say in the conversation, it's like, yeah, but I saw that you're doing XYZ, and it's obvious that you've been like watching their movies or reading their articles or watching another interview they did, or because you do that regularly. I'll hear you say that.
Yeah, I don't want to come in blind.
Yeah, so
and then be sitting here like, okay, what should we talk about?
Right. It's not that you're not informed on what they're up to. It's just that you don't have a super laid out, detailed plan of what. Yeah, I mean, from when I interview people, like there's a give and take, because yeah, like a lot of people will say, like, a bad interviewer is someone who just goes down the list of questions, and then when they get like a super interesting answer that should be poked at and prodded at and expanded upon, they don't even realize they have that good stuff there because they're so concentrating on getting to their next question and hitting their bullet points that they lost listening. The magic. Yeah. So a lot of people say that, but then sometimes you want to, the reason you have the list of questions in the first place is you want to make sure you're hitting on the topics that made the person interesting in the first place. So it's a tension. I mean, I feel that tension. I think most news reporters feel that tension when you go into an interview.
And you've got your time crunch. You have a limited amount of time with this person.
Exactly.
I need to hit what I need to hit so I can, go back and do what I'm trying to do. I've got this story built out. I need these quotes, or I need your take on this specific thing. And if I don't get that in my time frame, I'm screwed.
I'm screwed, right.
I was watching, I believe it was Larry King, discuss his interview style, and he was talking about how one time he was on some show and the interviewer was asking him questions, and he was very aware that they weren't paying attention. And so he just started throwing out random things like, I had an abortion. Not that specifically, but something like that. And then the interviewer just moved on to the next question. He's like, that is why most people fail at interviewing, because they're more focused on their questions than they are on the actual conversation. And that kind of stuck with me. The idea that my sole job here is to listen in some sense, and then to respond to what you're saying, not focus on, okay, this is what I want to talk about. This is where we're going to go. And I'm waiting for my turn to talk. I'm listening to you and then responding.
On that note, are you into Dave Rubin?
Yeah. I have his book. I haven't read it yet,
Okay.
but I have it.
The one with the matches on the cover? Which book is this?
It's, I think it's a blue cover.
Okay.
It might be one of his more recent books. His most recent book, I think, is the one that I have. Dave Rubin or Rick Rubin?
Dave Rubin. I'm talking about the guy who he used to work for the Young Turks. He's your style of podcaster. He has a very nice studio.
No, I'm thinking Rick Rubin.
Okay.
Who's the music producer.
Okay. Different person.
Different person. You should check him out. He's an interesting guy.
So he's a podcaster?
No, he's produced music for Jay-Z, has no technical skill, but has produced some great songs just by knowing what he's an interesting guy. I'm not doing him justice talking about him, but you should check him out after this. I have his book, not Dave Rubin.
Okay.
I don't know who that is.
Oh, really? It's because Dave Rubin's a big YouTuber within the style of what you're doing.
Has a podcast?
He has a podcast. He was like the first, I consider him like one of the first guys to show, like, because he used to work for the Young Turks, which is a bigger program on the internet. And then he got pissed at them and started doing his own one-on-one interviews. And he built a very nice studio, but it's still not like what you would see on network TV. It's more like a nice studio within this tradition, but he has a lot of things. It's more like a living room. He sets it up so it looks like a living room, but it's beautiful lighting, nice graphics, very, good camera work,
high production.
Yeah, good production value. And at the beginning, I used to like him. I think I think a lot of people have this tension. He used to be your type of conversationalist and interviewer where he basically just flowed with the person. But at some point, he got into the hot take business. And now he's like a right-wing hot take guy. And I just find his takes to be over the top and just not very insightful. And so he's kind of lost me on that. But when he was originally doing it, I enjoyed his work.
That's an easy trap to fall into.
Yeah.
Especially right-wing for some reason right now. I think it's just because it's the counterculture. So you could just, that there's a base for that. And all you have to do is hit those moments.
It's funny you say it, the right is the counterculture, but it is. I mean, that's what people say, MAGA is the new punk rock. And I've always been fascinated by that idea that the counterculture is now on the right. When you think of counterculture from the 60s. You
think of the left.
You think of the left. Yeah.
It's weird how it's flipped.
It has flipped. And, the left is now the ones that are arguing that you should trust the institution and trust the experts.
And we need to go to war and we need to have censorship.
That too. Yeah.
Crazy. It is seeing them just completely switch stances.
It has switched. Yeah,
I think a lot of people fall into that. You get that audience capture, and especially if maybe your show's not doing well, and you say, "Okay, what can I do to get on track?" I noticed that I had some clips. I think it was around some of the trans stuff, and they gained traction, and I recognized, oh, this could be a slippery slope. Because you don't want to just play towards one base.
Right.
So then I kind of corrected it and that kind of went a different way. But it's easy to slip into that. You start seeing success, you get a ton of views, and you're like, oh, this is what people want to see. So I'm going to just lean into this.
Right.
Start skewing my content or just angling it this way so that I can capitalize on that momentum. And then it backfires. Or it doesn't.
So, but you pretty much just dropped the transgender wars as a topic, correct? But you brought on Sky after.
No, I have another guest in the works still on that. I like to keep it diverse because I'm interested in a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
So I can feel when it's like, okay, especially having Sky or some of those other guests on, I wouldn't want to do a month-long series of just those podcasts because I would get burnt out.
You get bored, yeah.
This is too much.
Yeah.
Let's go hit another topic.
The Peter Slisak and the Ron Hassner, I think is his name. So those were interesting. that you were jumping into the October 7th kind of and Gaza war discussions.
Dangerous territory.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing that before October 7th, you didn't have any particular interest in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Not even on my radar.
Who cares? And then a thing happens and you're like, what is this? And it was only like a month and a half later that I think you were talking to those guys, but I could just tell from what you were saying that you were doing your best to catch up and learn the very basics, and it was good. And so I paid particular attention to those episodes. I have a massive background on that topic. And so I wanted to see what your guests were talking about, how you were treating it. That was really when the bombing campaigns were way, way, way more intense. Now the bombings aren't as intense. But yeah, so good job bringing those guys on. Now you didn't think it would be best to bring on someone local? Like, what was your thing? Because that's when I first saw you on Zoom.
I couldn't find anybody local. I reached out to HSU professors. I don't know if there were any or Cal Poly Humboldt professors now, if there were any on that topic, but I will go local if I feel like there's someone who is able to speak on it and is knowledgeable about it. Those two guys, one is a professor here in California, I believe, maybe Berkeley. I think Ron Hassner might be out of Berkeley.
Yeah.
And then Peter Slezak is out of the University of Australia, I believe. And they've been Peter Slezak has been talking about this for a long time. He's been in Palestine. He was helping there's a film, it's probably out now, that was on the Palestinian fight for freedom, I guess, in some sense. And so he's been on the ground for a number of years. I think going back decades, he's been speaking about this. So he was rock solid. Ron Hassner is a professor of Israeli studies. So I was trying to go to people who were reputable because I had no understanding of the issue. And so October 7th happens. I'm trying to figure out, okay, I'm trying to understand because obviously we're involved to some extent. So what's going on? And then I wanted to reach out to people that seemed like they knew what they were talking about to try to get both sides of, okay, what's actually happening? Because there's a ton of propaganda on both sides about the issue.
It is impossible to, it is, yeah, I mean, if you're not, I mean, I am very informed. And
what is your background on this? This is just something you're interested in?
No. So I am Jewish and I grew up in a traditional Jewish environment. I went to Jewish private school my whole life, kindergarten through 12. So, and in Jewish schools, Israel is a big deal, right? It's
understandably,
it's the thing. It's a huge deal. I have Jewish family. I mean, I have Israeli cousins because my mom's sister married an Israeli when she was in her 20s and lived in Israel the rest of the time. So my cousins are Israeli. They're born in Israel. They're Israeli. So I've been visiting Israel throughout my life. And then I lived there for 3 years. And then in addition to all that, then I got interested in it, and then I've done a massive amount of reading, and just there's just a lot of Jews have this connection to Israel. It's just this thing that a lot of Jews have, and I'm one of them. But theologically, I'm an atheist, right? So I'm not like a religious Jew at all, but I have a background in religious Judaism because of the way I grew up. So I have the religion part of it, and then the political part of it I've learned about just from visiting and reading and all this stuff. And even as an informed person, the propaganda, I'm just like, wait, is this true? Like what, and I mean, the amount of stuff that I see on Twitter, which is my main social media, I'm like, it's going to take me like 2 hours right now to fact check this. And like, that's just one tweet. There's like 9 tweets on my screen right now that are all claiming something. Like what am I supposed to do here?
And everything's claiming something different.
And when you reply to someone, their immediate response is, you actually think that? Imagine thinking something as stupid as you just said. Whatever, dude, and then with some gif making fun of you. And it's just like, oh man. It's like people are making fun of me. I've been like learning about this like my whole life. Like, what are you talking about?
Can we take a second? I got to take a piss, but I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think honestly, one of the best upgrades about this new place is having that bathroom there.
Totally.
Huge game changer.
and not being live. Well, when you go live, so what are you going to do? Like, I've never seen you when you're live have to have a person say, "I've got to go to the bathroom." Like, how do you avoid it?
Sometimes I've ended it. If I can hold it usually, but I think I've ended it a couple times saying, "Okay, let's wrap this up." You know, that's a good point to end it.
Yeah.
I don't know what we'll do. You'll see people go to the bathroom.
Right.
That's when we're going live.
Right.
Because otherwise, that's the only thing is the positioning of the door. It's not great. I thought about maybe reversing this, so shifting the table that way and then having the desk on that end. Because then I could move everything down and you wouldn't have the bathroom in the shot.
Okay.
But I want to hang stuff behind me, so I like having an actual wall, and that's a fake wall. That's a curtain.
Right.
So I would lose that, which is why the table's here. So I'm not quite sure.
Is the neon growing panes going back up or what's?
It's over there.
Oh,
the light's starting to go out, so it's green now.
Okay. But I don't see it.
It's up on the. Oh, it might be right behind the light there for you.
Okay.
See it there?
Oh, there you go. But it's not on camera anymore.
No, and neither is Johnny Cash. I want to get something new. Thought about maybe doing an American flag, but that might be a little too early Rogan. I don't want to bite his style that much. Thought about a ram skull would be cool. I'm kicking around some ideas.
See, I'm very partial to that.
The growing pains?
I just think it's simple, awesome branding.
A lot of people have said that.
And maybe it's just because it's what was on when I discovered you, and the
nostalgia.
First, I was just like, yeah, this is so cool, whatever. I always thought it was awesome. Remember, I think I was telling you on the podcast how I hate Rogan's huge thing that's behind him. I think that's just way too much. Whereas your thing is the perfect amount.
I might do that. I've got a different logo now, so I don't know if I want to. I haven't changed it over in the video, I don't think. I think it's still me. But I'll show you afterwards. I got a different logo. It's like a record and then growing pains on top of it. That's pretty cool.
A record like a 45?
An actual record style. I had a dude make it for me. That's pretty sweet. That'll be on this video. Just putting that out there. That'll be the new opening for this video.
Oh, cool.
The last one's still the same picture of me with growing pains, I think.
So it's not going to be you flipping around anymore.
No, it'll be the growing pains logo flipping around. Change it. But yeah, I don't know. I want to put something cool behind me as like the start of this new studio.
Right.
I haven't quite figured out what yet. I thought about a polished white ram skull with curled horns. I thought that would be
a photo of that, or
no, an actual
skull.
Actual skull.
Okay.
We'll see.
Well, yeah.
I'm still kicking around some things. I haven't put anything up there yet. And I got to get the positioning right before I start. I mean, I've already cut into the ceiling, but this will probably be where it is. I might push those curtains on the end back a little more, but kicking around. I'm coming here. This was completely different for the other one. Now yours is completely different.
Right.
And might be completely different for the next one. I'm still trying to hammer out some.
It's going to take a while to settle in and figure out.
Yeah, to get the feel, to figure out where everything needs to be. But the bathroom, huge.
And so this table you made, or
me and my dad made it. Yeah, it's not great. We built the lower frame, and then it's a sheet of ACX underneath this. This is like cabinet grade, but it's pretty sweet, right?
Are you a pretty good woodworker, or decent?
I can get by. My dad's he's the expert.
He's got the tools, he's got the saws and stuff.
Expert, yeah. He's been doing upholstery and construction since he was in diapers, probably. So he's my go-to. Okay, how can we do this? And then I'm more, I did the curtains, I did the tracks, I did all that.
Right.
But general framing, that was both of us, and you're kind of piecing it together.
I didn't grow up doing any of that stuff. And then I took a woodworking class at CR that was awesome. Going into it basically like never having used a table saw in my life.
Oh, wow.
And this is years ago, and it was awesome. And I kind of have, it's always like in the back of my mind, I'd like to get back into woodworking when I have the space and basically the space to set up the tools. That's what you need.
That's the thing.
You need tools.
You need tools.
But yeah, it just working with wood feels like awesome.
And you have a tangible result that you created something.
Oh, it's the best.
You can feel it. It's real.
So for the final project that we had in that class, it was basically freeform. Make whatever you want, right? You have to do a bunch of assignments during the semester, and then at the end, it's make something, whatever you want. So I made a bookcase, which is something relatively simple, right? Because it's just 90-degree angles everywhere. But it turned out pretty good. and I still have it. And this is from like 20 years ago. And it's now now I use it as basically I've got clothes on it, but who cares? You know, like it still looks great and is held up over time. And like you said, I made it, and I would love to. And one advantage that I have, like I was a pretty behind everybody else. A lot of people who take those classes, like in the trades at CR, you know, they grew up with their dads.
They've got some background.
They've got some background. So I was definitely one of the slower people. But I'm pretty good with math and numbers. And so, because there's so much math and understanding what the relationship is going to be. So I have that part down, you know? So that's like a part that's very encouraging. But yeah, there's just so many things you can make. I would love to have a space where I could, and if I had the space, then I would know. It's kind of like camera gear, where I know I'm going to invest a lot in my camera gear because that's important to me. I would do the same thing with woodworking. This is fun. This is interesting. It's going to provide me with fun activities for a long time, over and over. Invest in it.
You could do a YouTube channel on woodworking too. Your journey through
Adventures of a Beginning Woodworker would be a great.
Would be huge.
It would be
great
huge.
content.
Yeah.
I did think about, that was the other thing, is building shelving behind me. And I've got a ton of vinyl that I commandeered from my dad. My sister bought me some new ones that I've got, and putting those up behind me, because I've got a sound system. That's the next wave of stuff that's going to come over here. So I'm going to have a sound system and some vinyl records in here. And I thought putting those behind me would be maybe a cool backdrop.
But with the sound system, I mean, that's just for when you're hanging out here. It has nothing to do with the podcast.
No, that would be like when you're walking in, you know, I'll play music sometimes. So it would be on that instead, or if I'm just over here editing. That's more for me. And then the guests to see before we get, obviously we can't unfortunately play while we're going, but
right.
a cool aesthetic bonus.
Okay.
Could get some ideas around.
Yeah.
I might be going a little bit crazy with it, but that's part of the fun.
So there'll probably be like a bunch of episodes over the next year where it's just changing every few episodes, and you've changed. No, this sucks. This is dumb. It looks terrible. You know. I look forward to it. That's cool.
It'll be exciting.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Congratulations on this place.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, it's looking great. It's way more spacious. It's just so much bigger.
Yeah, you're not cramped.
No,
which is nice. And then you have the bathroom. It's not.
Yeah, not
you're
across
not leaving the studio to go.
Yeah, killing it.
Steady progress.
Yeah,
just getting crazy and then not thinking about the repercussions. Just going buck wild. That's the way I roll.
Cool.
So, Israel Palestine.
Oh, so Israel Palestine.
What do you think of everything that's going on right now? What's your take? Is this
so I am not on the pro-Israel side or on the pro-Palestine side. I'm on the kind of I don't know, in the middle side. I don't know what you would say. I mean, what I can offer, I think, is that like it can be frustrating listening to people who are on a side, right? Because
and have an agenda and are trying to push that.
And like even when someone's on a side, a lot of times, like even if everything that they're saying is true, they are conveniently leaving out other things that are not good for their argument that are also true, right? It's like they're not lying to you in the sense that everything they're saying is true.
They're just omitting
these other things, right? And that's, I just think that's so common, and I found that to be the case with those guys. Now, you had them both on. That's the whole idea, is that you fill in the blanks, and good job. But so what do I think about what's going on? I mean, it's hard to summarize, but I think that the killing of all these Palestinian civilians is beyond tragic. I have so many problems with the protesters. I have so many problems with the Cal Poly protesters. I have so many problems with the protesters around the United States and the world. But ultimately, no matter how many problems I have with them, they are reacting to something that is indeed incredibly tragic. It's not a manufactured crisis. It's a real crisis. When people are being killed and bombs are being dropped on their head and families are being wiped out, that's tragic, right? And a lot of the other things that the left complains about are basically fake, right? Transgenocide, there's no transgenocide. You don't worry about it because it doesn't exist. This is a real thing that exists, right? People are being killed. So that's the first thing like that I want to say. And it's very, very sad. Beyond that, I think that Hamas is a unspeakably bad group. This is not a hot take. They went to a dance party and killed the people there, right? Obviously, that's not a good thing to do. Don't do that. The protesters and many, like Peter was a good example. He acknowledges that it's an atrocity, but he doesn't want to spend too much time talking about that. He wants to get back to his talking points about how awful Israel is. And it's like, dude, let's take a second to reflect on the fact that this group intentionally went to a dance party and started killing everybody there.
And kidnap people.
Like, you can't just gloss over it. That's not a minor fact. That's a major fact. Like, I mean, it's the reason you started to do interviews. You probably were moved by, like, how could this happen? What is this? This is not new for them. They are a terrible group. They are absolutely awful. That being said, we should try to understand the underlying grievances that animate them, just like we should always try to understand the underlying grievances that animate terrorists. Terrorists frequently have relatively mainstream grievances that they take, their reaction to it is extreme, but the grievances are not extreme. I don't know if you were following this. This blew up a few months ago that people were sharing Osama bin Laden's grievances, that they were sharing it on TikTok and it went viral.
And people were freaking out.
People were pissed off that they were talking about Osama bin Laden's grievances. Well, no, I've known this forever. Osama bin Laden's grievances are fairly mainstream criticisms of U.S. foreign policy. Most professors of political science in the United States say the same things that Osama bin Laden says. Now, they don't believe in killing Americans because of those grievances, to be clear. That's the response action part of it. But as far as what the grievance is, the things that Osama bin Laden complained about before 9/11 and after 9/11 are not things he made up. They're real things.
And real grievances that people have.
And that massive numbers of people have, most of whom are not psycho killers, right? So it's the same with Hamas. Hamas has legitimate grievances, and their response to it is to go kill people at a dance party, which is crazy. But that doesn't change that the grievances are real. So, and just to summarize what the grievances are, it's that, well, there's a bunch of grievances. One of the grievances is that Israel uses its military in the West Bank to rule over Palestinians who have no say in the power that is ruling over them. They are living through an occupation for 67 years. That's a long time. Not 67. I think it's since 1967. So 57, I guess. And we in the West, regardless of whether we're progressive or conservative, we don't believe in that. We don't believe that people should have a foreign military ruling over them and making decisions about their lives through their own personal whims of what they feel like that day, and not allowing the people who live there to have any say in the power that rules over them. That's absurd.
Well, antithetical to the foundation of America.
Totally.
We take these truths to be self-evident.
Totally. Yeah. So, and exactly, you're quoting the Declaration of Independence, which would be coded as kind of like a right-wing approach to this conflict. But that's the thing about supporting Palestinian rights, is that you can support it from the right. And I feel I do support Palestinian rights from the right because, like you just said, our basic country, we fought a revolution when we were in the same situation as Palestinians.
It's crazy that the occupation thing gets so much pushback, that people don't even want to say that Palestinians are under an occupation. Have you seen that? I've seen a ton of people who are on the pro-Israel side say that they're not. There is no occupation.
They're probably using a bunch of semantic arguments to...
Well, it's this claim that, there's never been Palestinian state. They have no currency. They have no passport, all of this stuff. And it's like, okay, but why don't they have that?
Yeah. And all those things are true, but who cares? I mean, the most important thing is that they are being ruled over by people and they have no say over the power that is ruling over them. We don't believe in that. I don't care if you call it an occupation. Call it whatever you want. That is not consistent with what mainstream normie Americans believe.
What we were founded on.
Yeah, what we were founded on. So what the more intelligent, honest Zionists will say is that we have to hold this territory because if we allow Palestinians to be independent, Hamas is going to rise in the West Bank just like they rose in Gaza when we left Gaza. The West Bank is hilly, and that means it's going to look over Israel, and they're going to be able to fire rockets from the West Bank into Jerusalem, and we're going to give them more targets to hit because our towns are going to be right near their towns over the border. They're going to do the same thing they did in Gaza. So we can't ever take the foot off their neck. That's what smart Zionists, and that's a more convincing argument that I hear from Zionists rather than the fact that, hey, we're not an occupation. The smart Zionists will say, well, we are ruling over them, but this is the reason we can't ever withdraw.
The argument is that we have to.
We have to, otherwise they're going to attack us. And they are correct that when Israel withdrew from Gaza, Hamas rose to power, and Hamas is the worst. So it is somewhat of a compelling argument, but it doesn't really persuade me because it assumes that we believe that all peoples of the earth deserve to be free except for Palestinians. Like, it's just such a weird argument.
And a weird argument from a supposed democracy to make.
Correct. So when Ron is asking you, why don't these protesters care about Uyghur Muslims in China? And why don't they care about the atrocities that are going on in South Sudan? My answer to him is, first of all, Israel is supposedly a Western democracy. It wants to be in the clique of Western democratic nations. It wants to be buddies with us, and along with Germany and France and Italy and Sweden. It considers itself part of that clique of nations. Those nations are not doing anything like what Israel's doing. Those nations are not doing, they're not doing what the Chinese are doing to Uyghur Muslims. They're not doing what is happening in South Sudan. So he's correct that there are many bad things happening in the world, and most of them don't get as much attention as the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But we already know the Chinese are bad. They're not part of our clique because we think they're bad. We treat Israel like they're part of our clique, but they're doing this really bad thing. That's why we talk about them. They're part of us. The Chinese are not part of us. That's the answer to the question. Zionists are constantly asking this rhetorical question as if they've got this amazing gotcha. And I'm like, dude, yes, what's happening to Uyghur Muslims is really bad, but we're not facilitating it. We're not funding it. We're not giving it diplomatic cover. The United States is both giving foreign aid to Israel left and right and selling weapons to Israel left and right to basically perpetuate this treatment of Palestinians. We are not directly responsible for how they're behaving, but we're indirectly responsible. If we cut off arms sales and we stop giving them diplomatic cover in the United Nations, it would be quite different. They would have to figure out, okay, how are we going to respond to this, that the United States doesn't have our back anymore? And to be clear, we don't have to break our diplomatic ties with Israel over this. We can just say, if you continue occupying the West Bank, we are not going to sell you weapons anymore. They can still be allies. We're just not selling you weapons.
But that would require a strong president. And our president has shown that at every step, he will backtrack if it's not in Israel's interest. He said, we're not going into Rafah. That's a hard line. And then Bibi said, we are going into Rafah. And we said, okay.
So this has happened with a succession of U.S. presidents.
Well, and it's also happened with this president in other theaters, right? In Ukraine, we're not giving them fighter jets. Oh, well, now we are. We're not going to let them strike in Russia, which is crazy. And then last week, I believe he said, yeah, we're going to allow them to do that.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Gave the green light to Zelensky to strike preemptively in Russia. Which is crazy to any realistic person who is pragmatic about where we are in this current time and how things are ramping up, to say that ammunition from the United States and with the blessing of the United States can be used to attack Russia is just objectively insane. And now Russia's doing military exercises outside of Cuba. Nobody's paying attention to that.
And so Ukraine is going to use our fighter jets to do that?
They're going to use I don't know about our fighter jets, but they're going to, I believe they've already struck targets inside of Russian territory because Biden gave them the green light.
So why do you think that's crazy?
I think that's crazy because if we were at war, say we're in Afghanistan, And Russia was blatantly supplying them weapons. And then not only doing that, but allowing them to start using those weapons to come to our home turf, our territory, and strike. We would be at war with Russia. No question. And yet we're on Russia's border fully funding this war. We're the backers for this war. We are the ones, we could have ended it. It could be done tomorrow. Could have been done a long time ago, but we pressured, the UK to lean on Zelensky, and we've continued. And for what purpose? I mean, to me, this just shows how little we care about not only human life, but the lives of men, because we have completely obliterated a generation of Ukrainian men and Russian men, and for what end? The inevitable, that Russia's going to win, unless we get directly involved, which I believe it's Macron saying that he wants to put NATO troops in Ukraine to start, I don't know if it's fighting alongside them or strategically training them or what, but we're playing a dangerous game that we would not allow be played against us. And then we're pointing the finger at Russia and saying, oh, Putin's crazy. Putin's he's sick, he's crazy, he's belligerent, he's a bad leader, he's a dictator, and we need to take him out. But if you look at history, I had a conversation with somebody a long time ago who's close to me, and might have been back towards the beginning of the war, and I was making the stance, this is all about NATO expansion, whether people want to recognize that or not. I mean, we almost went to war over Cuba. Cuba's not even a state, but it's so close, and Ukraine has always been a hard line for Russia. It's not a secret. I believe directors of the CIA have said that it's known. Everybody knows this, has a cursory knowledge of Ukraine and Russia and their connection. And for whatever reason, we are obsessed with NATO expansion. I believe I don't know if it was in the Tucker Carlson interview where Putin said that he wanted to be a member of NATO, or maybe that came out after that interview. NATO exists as a bulwark against Russia.
Yeah, that's why.
Why would we not want to deepen ties with Russia? Why are we trying to push them towards the Chinese? Why are we trying to implode our currency by levying sanctions against them? It feels like this is all in pursuit of war, and the question is why? Why? And it's because it's not our lives yet, and so we're just going to sacrifice Ukrainian men. I believe it's Poland and some other states Zelensky is trying to make them extradite Ukrainian men, fighting age men, because they don't have enough men. I think the average age of people on the front line is in their 50s now.
I'm seeing images. I'm seeing photos of dudes that look like me. Yeah. Dudes that got gray in their beard. Yeah.
People like us.
Yeah.
That are dying for no reason. Because we want Ukraine in NATO? Why? Why would that make any sense? Other than if we thought we were going to war with Russia. I mean, our leaders are objectively failing the people. And nobody cares about the lives of men. That's what this shows me, is that for all this talk of equality, for all this talk of lives matter, it's not men.
Yeah.
Like, we have gone from the sins of the patriarchy to now we're at such a backlash. And men have always died in war. That's the reality. But it seems so just egregious now that we just do not care about the lives of men, especially if they're not in our country. We're willing to sacrifice them for an end that I think most Americans wouldn't even agree with if they actually understood the conflict. Oh, and where I was going with that, I went off on a tangent there. I had a conversation with someone, and I was trying to make the case that it's because of NATO expansion, and they were under the assumption that Russia was a part of NATO and had broken the treaty by invading Ukraine. And how do we have a realistic conversation about what is unfolding if that is your starting point?
Yeah, no.
That you think Russia's a part of NATO,
right,
and that NATO wasn't founded to bump up against Russia and to be this alliance against them. How do we have any sort of understanding or come to a conclusion about what should be done, what shouldn't be done? And how many other people are under false beliefs like that?
Yeah, I mean, I just read a Twitter thread from a commentator on Israel-Palestine who I like a lot. And like basically his main point was like, hey, because it seems like this principle can apply to the Russia-Ukraine conflict too, and a lot of conflicts. He was like, we all know it's going to end in a deal. So can we just skip all the killing and get to the deal part and just skip the war so that people don't have to die? Because like everything ends in a deal eventually.
Well, who actually thought Ukraine was going to win?
Yeah, nobody. That's
I know people that really did.
They
bought into the Ukrainian push they're gonna get all their land back. They're gonna get Crimea back. This is gonna be an overwhelming success against a country that is far larger, has far more military capability, but no.
And has more
Ukraine's
people.
Gonna win. More people.
Yeah.
And is willing to throw them to the meat grinder.
Right.
Like Zelensky is, but they have more bodies.
Did you watch the full Tucker interview with Putin?
I did.
What'd you think of it?
I mean, he got a lot of shit for that.
Who, Tucker?
Tucker.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. I thought it was really interesting looking at the dichotomy of our leader versus Putin. I don't think that Joe Biden could put, a paragraph together, and then you have Putin just go on this 30-minute rant about Russian history leading up to these moments, and it's just looking at it through that frame is kind of surprising.
Yeah, no, I didn't watch it, but the commentary that I saw was a lot of
that.
People were saying like he just busted out like a PhD thesis verbally in real time in the middle of an interview that was like structured with arguments,
coherent.
History. Yeah, and like I mean, we're stoked that Joe Biden can like get through a couple of sentences. We're like, all right, he did okay.
We're happy if he doesn't fall.
Yeah,
or try to shake hands with some ghost on stage.
Yeah. I didn't watch it. It's kind of on my watch list, but I'm not that informed on Ukraine, Russia, so I don't have many hot takes. I mean, Ron was talking about this a lot, that people have hot takes in Israel, Palestine when they have no idea what they're talking about. I try to avoid that. He's right. Most of the people who have hot takes in Israel, Palestine, or a lot of them, have no idea what they're talking about.
They have no fundamental understanding of the actual conflict.
Yeah. So I try to not to. With Russia and Ukraine, I just listen to people talk. So you're telling me, I'll just listen,
Well, don't take me as an expert. I'm
But it's obvious you've spent more time on it than I have.
I'm just terrified of where this goes. And I'm more terrified that if I'm able to at least see some of this, why are our leaders who are supposed to be experts so cavalier in taking us down this path?
Mm-hmm.
Because if Macron is talking about NATO troops, I think it's Germany's talking about reinstating the draft. It feels like we're building for war. And why? It's not existential. There's no purpose. We could have prevented this war from day one if we had just said NATO will not expand into Ukraine.
Right.
Or that NATO shouldn't expand at all, that we should be trying to build rapport with Russia. But because of the whole Russiagate thing and this whole branding about Putin, it's so toxic that people are just think he's like Kim Jong-un, and we've got to take him out.
Yeah.
And the parallels to Israel, what blows my mind is how people try to shut down the conversation by saying, oh, well, we dropped bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, so Israel has a right to do this. Or you can't question this because you questioning this is you being anti-Semitic. You're against Jewish people? That's why you're questioning this? What? It's almost this carte blanche effect where they could just wage war to any extent that they deem necessary, and you can't ask any questions because then you're anti-Jewish by saying maybe we shouldn't just indiscriminately bomb people, right? Can we agree on that? No, that's blood libel.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Also, I mean, the whole we bombed Dresden and we bombed Nagasaki, yeah, and that's a lot of our moral philosophy that we've developed since then is saying that was wrong. Like a lot of atrocities, we look back on them and say, yeah, you shouldn't do that. And there's somewhat of a consensus, I would say, in both the left and the right, I think, in the United States. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know what the public opinion polling is. But yeah, the argument people are making is that Dresden and Nagasaki and Hiroshima was immoral, that it was not fair to do that. So,
which is ironic to try to use that as a justification to make a modern day project of it in some sense.
Yeah.
Well, you did this, so we can do this, even though there are decades in between.
In between.
We've grown and
yeah,
hopefully managed to become better in some ways.
Yeah.
But no democracy, the way that they've handled it, no democracy would act this way. We didn't do this way in Afghanistan. I mean, we were very, supposedly, I haven't dug enough into this, but supposedly we were very careful, especially with things like Fallujah, of not killing civilians. But even then, we messed up. We had Abu Ghraib. So we're not necessarily the arbiters of morality, but that doesn't take away from the fact that you can look at this and say, the response is kind of crazy. Not taking away from October 7th, but is October 7th just a hall pass to completely decimate all of Gaza?
Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth on this because I read so many different things about the killing of the civilians in Gaza, about whether it's been, a lot of people will say it was almost like carpet bombing. They were, bombing civilian infrastructure. They were bombing apartment buildings. It's immoral. It's unethical. Other people have these figures that show that the civilian to combatant death ratio is actually not that bad and is better than the United States had in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I'm not sure which is which.
The propaganda on both sides is
out of control.
Mind-boggling.
It's out of control. And I say that as someone who's extremely informed on this topic. I'm just trying to incorporate everybody. And a lot of times on Twitter, I'll ask some like sincere follow-up questions to someone who I'm not trying to get him or win an argument. I'm actually trying to understand because I really want to learn in the true spirit of learning.
And with everything.
And then they've got to hit me with a GIF that shows how dumb I am and making fun of me. And I'm like, no, I'm actually really trying to form an opinion by learning about this, and I'm asking you a question.
And they're just dunking on you.
Yeah, dunking on me. Quote tweet me so that they can show everybody else.
Look at this dummy.
Look at this dumbass, So that gets really frustrating. And I mean, the thing that I felt that Peter, both of them were doing this, but some of the ways that Peter represented Hamas, because there is this tension, right? If you support Palestinian rights, you have to deal with the fact that there's this awful organization that is at the forefront of Palestinian nationalism, right? This is an organization that thinks it's cool to go up and kill a bunch of people at a dance party. And you can't get around that. No, not everybody supports Hamas in Gaza. No, not all Palestinians support Hamas. Of course not. But they are a very significant force within the society. Like you just can't deny that. There's a reason they won the elections, right?
And I know the other thing is a significant portion of the population is under 18.
Correct.
And we're talking about elections, I believe, from 2004.
Right. When they
voted in Hamas.
When they weren't born yet.
So these are, you want to talk about the sins of our father.
Yeah.
We're essentially wiping out a generation of people who had nothing to do with that in some sense. We're just born into the wrong area.
Yeah. Now, I think that there is a reason, though, that Hamas does have a lot of support within Gaza.
Well, here's the thing. How does what's happening now not build more support? How does the bombings, how does the killings not create more terrorists? That's what I don't understand.
It does. It creates more resentment. But, it's the chicken or the egg. Were the terrorists there? And in response, Israel bombed them because they slaughtered a bunch of people on October 7th, and then the bombing creates more terrorists. Who started it first? And you can go back to literally 1895 to start this. This is the problem. A lot of conversations about Israel-Palestine, in fact, do that. They go back to the very beginning. I think part of the problem is that I'm more sympathetic to Israel than your average protester, ceasefire protester at Cal Poly or wherever, because I think Israel has the right to go in and kill Hamas and to destroy all their military infrastructure. Based on what they did. And this October 7th was not a one-off. They send rockets into Israel all the time, and they're not smart rockets that are directed at military installations. They're sent at cities, and they're dumb rockets, right? Every single time Hamas fires one of those rockets, that's a war crime, right? The left and supporters of Palestinian nationalism love to talk about international humanitarian law, war crimes, the NGOs. It's okay, but every single rocket that Hamas fires is a war crime.
Here's the question. Do we have different standards for democracies versus, I don't know what you would say, a third world country?
Absolutely.
It seems like what Gaza is.
Absolutely. So, and this is part of the problem, is that we are grading on a curve, right? because Israel wants, this is back to the clique thing, because Israel wants to be part of the clique of Western democratic nations, we hold them to a much higher standard than we do Hamas, which we just understand, if we're intelligent, that this is a terrorist organization. But we have to always point that out, because unless we specifically point that out, hey, we are holding them to a higher standard, people get confused and they don't see that little asterisk and the little disclaimer at the bottom that's connected to the asterisk, and they think Hamas is on the same moral level as Western democratic countries or the Israeli government, and they're not. Now, the response to that would be, and this always happens in these sorts of conflicts, is that it is true that Israel kills way more Palestinians than Palestinians kill Israelis. Throughout the conflict,
throughout history,
Hamas killed 1,200 Israelis on October 7th. Israel has responded by killing, 35,000 Palestinians?
I don't even know now.
It's a lot. And that is basically a reflection of the fact that Israel has an advanced modern military and Hamas has basically nothing. Hamas is very weak. They would kill a lot more Israelis if they could. It would be a totally different conflict. So it's like, it's true that Israel causes more destruction and death, but that's more a function of the militaries and the comparative strength of the militaries than it is any sort of moral high ground that Hamas has.
But is there some morality on Israel where you are this power and a significant power compared to Hamas, that if you are engaging in, I don't know if you would go as far as to say reckless bombing, but it seems like people are pretty comfortable with indiscriminate bombing, that there is some cult there, that you have all of this technology, you have the US backing, you have us providing a ton of support, that maybe that's not the avenue you would take. Maybe you do put troops on the ground more and put them in situations where they might be under fire more so that you diminish the risk of civilian casualties because you are not a superpower, but more powerful in comparison.
Yes, so that's the tension, is that when you have the ability to fight from the air and the opposing military has basically no anti-aircraft weapons and basically can do nothing to take the Israeli planes out of the sky, Israel can basically keep their soldiers safe by just bombing the hell out of Gaza from up top, and Hamas cannot fight them. And so very few Israeli soldiers will get killed. And so essentially what the people who criticize the Israeli military are saying is that, no, you have to get on the ground and go one by one and hunt the Hamas fighters. But of course, more Israeli soldiers will die that way because they'll be on the ground. They'll be vulnerable. They won't be in the air where they're not vulnerable. So that is like the moral question.
And that's what we did in Iraq and Afghanistan. We made that distinction and put troops in harm's way to try to diminish those casualties.
Correct.
On the civilian side.
Correct. We did do that. And now Israel also has tons of troops on the ground as well, but they brought most of those ground troops in after they had bombed the hell out of the whole territory. So I think there's some merit to that argument that they should go on the ground and fight. I don't know. It's hard to convince a population. I mean, I think you're right that we did do that in Fallujah and in Iraq and all these places. Now, the difference is that, and this is back to criticism of Israel, in Fallujah, we were sincerely trying to, one, eliminate the terrorists. I shouldn't call them terrorists because they're fighting in their homeland and they have a right to fight against.
Well, ironically, we shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's the big rub with all of that, is that.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Setting that aside, that's a whole other tangent.
If I call them terrorists, I'm engaging in propaganda. So we were trying to specifically kill fighters and then subsequently rebuild the civil society so it could function without us. In the case of Israel, Israel is not trying to build civil society for Palestinians so that they can function without Israel. Israel is trying to dominate Palestinians, and this gets back to the occupation. Israel, we know, based on everything Benjamin Netanyahu's career has been on, the prime minister of Israel, and all the ministers in his government, they do not believe in an independent Palestinian state. It's not that they believe that the occupation is temporary until we can build them up. They do not believe in a Palestinian state. They want the world to go back. For them, October 6th can last until the end of time, right? before the massacre happened. They just want a slow drip, keep infringing on Palestinian territory, keep harassing the people that live there with not with Israeli settlers and Israeli soldiers until all the Palestinians leave. And then Jews can take over more and more territory, and that's the way it will go. That's a catastrophic vision that almost the whole world, including me, rejects. And so we are skeptical of anything the Israeli government says because their end game is such a bad end game. It's going back to the October 6th status quo. And so even if sometimes on the specifics of what Israel is doing, I think they're catching some unwarranted criticism, in the big picture, you kind of want to criticize this guy, Benjamin Netanyahu, because his end game is terrible.
And he's stated, it's not just evidence adjacent to him that the party seems to support, it's things that he's actually said, that there will never be a two-state solution.
I mean, totally. I mean, he said, he has some it's like the classic quote, my political career or I'm the man Israel needs because I will never now allow the creation of a Palestinian state. Well, dude, that's pretty bad. I'm not interested in you at all if that's your attitude. And so I don't have a quick fix. How would I solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Well, like most other people, I see two states side by side. I mean, this has been the international consensus forever for a good reason. It's a very normie position. We've got two peoples there, and they don't seem, there are some people who have what's called the one-state vision, but it doesn't really seem like Israeli Jews and Palestinians share that one-state vision. It seems that they want to have their own country, each have their own country where they are kind of in charge, which is a good vision. Now, to be clear, Hamas does not share that two-state vision. Peter was trying to sell you, this is very annoying when people on the left do this. They try to sanitize Hamas so that people in the West will not pay too much attention to them and so will not realize how awful they are. He told you that Hamas has said on many occasions that they would accept a two-state solution living side by side with Israel, a Jewish Israel. Okay, let me explain what that means. You have a big organization, right? And so they make a lot of statements. They have all sorts of different spokespeople who go on Arab TV, just like our government officials go on TV. And different people say different things. So what he's doing is he's focusing on the 6 statements that have ever been made that indicate that Hamas is willing to have a long-term quasi-permanent ceasefire if this is what they've said in the past is if Palestinians by a public referendum want to accept a Palestine that is only on the 67 borders, basically in West Bank and Gaza, then we will go along with that and have a long-term ceasefire with Israel, which does not involve diplomatic relations. It does not involve recognition and a declaration that the conflict really is over. It's just a ceasefire that lasts a long time. So that's what they've said on very sparingly occasions, right? So that's 0.5% of the time. The other 99.5% of the time, which is what I take to be what they think and what their guiding principle is no compromise, death to the Jews in Israel and death to the Jews everywhere. And we will succeed and we will do this and we will do October 7th over and over and over again. That's what they say all the time. I don't have to pick out the 6 times they've said that over the course of the last 30 years like Peter's doing because they say it all the time. I can pick it out of hundreds of statements. So I don't want people to think that Hamas is this groovy organization that is so down with coexistence with Jews. They are very much not. They're not.
Yeah, but people just can get co-opted, especially when there's great tragedy going on. I mean, there are a lot of videos out there of people getting blown up. And I don't know if there is a quick fix to this. I think my biggest gripe is just U.S. involvement. I mean, with the amount of funding that we give to Israel, we ultimately have the say, and yet we're not using any of our power to influence any outcome. We're just letting them run buck wild, which if they're a foreign nation and they want to do what they want to do and they want to face the consequences of that, that's one thing. But if they're trying to do that under the umbrella of U.S. protection and they're bringing our standing down with that, kind of like with the situation in Ukraine, I don't think that's okay. I don't think we should be supporting that because we know better, regardless of whether they don't. we do. And so to be adjacent to that, it goes back onto our leadership. It blows my mind that this is where we are.
I think there's a bunch of reasons that I agree with you that I would like to see a little bit of space between the United States and Israel as far as, supposedly we have this special relationship. That's like the term that the government officials will use. And I'd rather just be normal allies as opposed to BFFs, It's
like a toxic relationship.
It is a toxic relationship. But the weird aspect of it is that the United States is the superpower and Israel is the client state. But their leaders don't act like that, and our leaders don't act like that.
No, they're the superpower and we're the vassal state.
Which
is insane.
Like Benjamin Netanyahu is he's pretty much giving the figurative fuck you to the United States all the time.
The blatant fuck you.
Yeah.
Whatever you say, what did he say that if Israel has to stand alone, they will. And he said that knowing that the U.S. will bend the knee.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Okay, so why does that happen? I think there's a couple of reasons. First of all, the politicians who are currently in power in the United States are old. When they came of age, Israel was this plucky underdog. Joe Biden and, a Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi, all these old people, they grew up when they were in their 20s, it was the early 60s, right? And Israel was a 15-year-old country that was indeed surrounded by Arab countries that indeed were trying to fight wars with Israel and kill the people who lived in Israel, the Jews. And Israel was surviving and was this new democratic country. And so those politicians understandably admired Israel and really felt an emotional connection to Israel and just thought that they were going to support it. Then the Cold War happened. The Arab countries were on the side of the Soviet Union. Israel was on the side of the United States. It further entrenched the United States being partners with Israel. But the problem is, in 2024, Israel is no longer a plucky underdog. It's this dominant military power that has crushed the surrounding Arab countries in every war they've ever fought. That's why the Arab countries stopped fighting with Israel, because they got sick of getting their asses kicked.
Well, that, and we've paid them off to the tunes of billions of dollars.
Yes.
Which people conveniently seem to leave out.
You're talking about the Arab countries. Yes, yeah, exactly. These Gulf monarchies, we're in bed with them at this point. We're giving them a lot of money. We're giving them weapons. And so they've calmed down with the anti-Israel stuff. But what I think is that when this generation of politicians dies or just exits office, they're holding on to power so long. All these people in their 80s who are super high people running the U.S. government, if you look at the younger politicians in Congress, they are saying what you just said about Israel. It's guys, maybe we shouldn't be totally in bed with these cats. They're not really sharing some of our values with regards to the Palestinians. They're screwing us with our international reputation. We're not, and they're not listening to what we say. They're trying to embarrass us. And it's both parties have the younger politicians, because the MAGA politicians are saying this exact same thing. And so are these AOC and her buddies, but also people that are not quite as progressive, but are just normie Democrats, but are young, are all saying that because they didn't grow up with Israel being this underdog. They grew up with saying, what's going on with this 60-year occupation of the Palestinians? So I think it's going to change as the older politicians die off. So that's one point. The second point is that people will blame the Jewish lobby groups for U.S. policy towards Israel. And the Jewish lobby groups are indeed quite powerful. And Jews in general in the United States are in positions of power. And many of those Jews want a very support the right-wing government of Israel position. But it's not just Jews. It's also these Christian nationalists, some of whom and I don't quite understand the theology because I just find it so crazy. I never want to invest the time to learn about it. But there's this idea that a lot of people believe in that at the rapture, you know about this? You grew up, probably know more about this than I do, but apparently when all the Jews congregate in Israel, then some beast is going to come and everybody who doesn't believe in Jesus is going to get plucked into the sky, and then the Christians are going to... you tell me, right? It has something to do with Israel, and tons of people in the United States who vote believe in this stuff.
Yeah, the religious tie is an interesting and powerful dynamic in all of this amongst Christians and obviously Jews, but the ties to Israel, that we have to support them from a religious standpoint. that it's
and
all
some of these guys
encompassing.
are like, these televangelists or these guys who have like congregations where there's like 8,000 people and it's like in Texas in these like huge
We have
arenas.
the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, saying that.
Is he okay?
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure he's Christian, but he is taking the evangelical stance that this is a religious fight, that we have to support them. Incredibly powerful guy in government, who is full sail on Israel at any cost. We have to get them the weapons.
I don't know if you're familiar with the reporter Lee Feng. He's
Is he gay?
I don't know. He might be. I don't know. But
I don't know. There's a reporter, I thought he was Lee Feng, who was assaulted, I believe in San Francisco, at like a Pride festival or something a long time ago, and he was gay, and that's who I thought you were talking about, but maybe not.
Okay, I don't know.
Little tangent, my bad.
Yeah, no.
I'm trying to.
So he did a quick hitting video where he just asked like Republican members of Congress, "Hey, why do you support Israel so much?" And it's like this rapid fire video where he just gives like the 10-second answer, and all of them like their first response is about Christianity, and it's just like it's a bunch of like one-liners where because you see it can't be edited because you see him each time saying, "Hey, why do we support Israel so much?" And we see the response with no editing, and it's just like Christian, and it's like, that's a pretty sorry-ass reason to support a country. You can't frame it in any other terms like geopolitics, democracy, morality, strategic interests, whatever. You're
going right to religion.
You're going right to religion. And I'm just like, okay, this is weird. This is getting, I mean, I watched that video. I'm like, that is really fucking weird.
Religion is a powerful tool.
Yeah. So,
it can be wielded.
I'm just trying to shed light on why we have, such a close relationship and why, well, I mean, the thing is like with Biden, with him kind of saying there's a red line and then Israel just completely going over the red line, like I would think like Biden's voters you would think he wouldn't care that much because you'd think his voters, like if a Republican does this, I understand because they're so like all those Christians are mostly going to vote Republican, so they have to toe the line on Israel. But are Biden's voters really going to get all that pissed off if he actually enforces the red line? Like, why is he not? Like, I don't get it.
Well, I just don't think he's there. I think that this is.
But he's not the first president. Obama also got run over by Netanyahu, and Obama was there.
The reality is, AIPAC does have a tremendous amount of power and influence, and the ties are deep, and there's a religious element that is incredibly powerful, and our political leaders are bought in or bought out, and these are the decisions that they feel they need to make, despite what their constituents want, despite what the broader public wants. And Biden's, I mean, we're in an election year, and maybe he thinks that if he starts backing out, it would be bad for him. But Trump, I believe, is just as, if not more so, gung-ho on Israel. So I don't know that him getting in would be any better for that situation.
Yeah, Trump is interesting because he's had moments where he's actually expressed more sympathy towards Palestinians than most American presidents have, especially when he ran. I forget what he said. It was in 2015 at one of the debates. He made a comment that was like much more sympathetic to Palestinians than really you ever hear American presidents be. But then subsequently, he was much more gung-ho on, he moved the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. It seems like he has donors that are just like super like right wing on Israel. And when it's like he'll meet with a donor who's super right wing on Israel, the next day he'll come out with like some right wing, Israeli Likud talking point that comes from Netanyahu's government. So I never know, but I think on the balance he is less sympathetic to Palestinians than Biden is. I don't know.
There's so many balls up in the air that it's almost we're in a perfect storm for all of this to be taking place. We're in an election year. We've got an incoherent president going up against another president who is older and of that generation. And we're on the brink of war.
Part of the frustration that I have also is that so these protesters, right? like I said, on some level, I sympathize with a lot of what they're saying about the conflict. On the other hand, these protesters are wokeists, a lot of them.
Oh, they're retarded.
And they're
retarded. My gripe is that if they cared a fraction as much about America as they do about foreign countries, this place would be amazing. But they don't, because they're distracted and they're ill-informed, and understandably they see people dying abroad, and that's their focus. Meanwhile, we have people dying in the streets all the time here from fentanyl, from a variety of things, and nobody gives a shit.
Is it that they're ill-informed or they're underinformed? Because Hassner was saying he has that poll that he gave of even of his students who were supposedly like graduate students in politics, and they had no idea what they were talking about, even though they had super hot takes. It's like the worst, right? And these are not like hooligan protesters, or maybe they are, but they're graduate students at UC fucking Berkeley, right? And like, I thought that was really funny what he said about, and I know this to be true. It's like every time there's like an interview with these protesters, I'm trying to find like one who will just make a coherent statement.
Well, how about AOC in that video where she's talking about the occupation of Palestine? And then gets not even pressure, just a follow-up question. What do you mean by that?
She's like,
and just completely crumbles.
And she's like, yeah, I don't really know that much about it. It's
I'm
like,
not the expert
right.
on foreign affairs or whatever.
In her defense, that video is like from when she first ran, I think. It's like 6 years old. So
I didn't know that.
No, it's not like that's not a recent video. So she probably knows a lot more about it now being in Congress as opposed to working as a bartender. Like she's going to learn stuff along the way.
But still, that's emblematic of society as a whole.
Of having hot takes.
You make this stance, and then if anybody has any follow-up, it crumbles. You realize, you don't actually know what you're talking about at all.
Yeah. One of my favorite reporters is this guy, Zed Jelani, who is, he's kind of like a left-wing populist. And I like him. I like his reporting a lot, which is really good. And I like his commentary a lot. And he's very pro-Palestinian rights. And he wrote this article basically saying that the pro-Palestine movement in the United States has to rebrand itself using arguments that are appealing to actual normal Americans instead of getting caught up in so much craziness. And the example he gave is that there was a rally, probably a big one in New York City, where there was a sign saying the NYPD, meaning the New York City Police Department, the KKK, and the Zionist entity, they're all the same. It had some slogan that was all like that. And he's like, if you compare the New York City Police Department to the KKK, no one who's normal is going to take anything you say after that seriously, right? Stop having these crazy left ideas about the world, come back to planet Earth in the middle where most people live, and then start talking about Palestinian rights, right? It's like you're comparing the New York City Police Department to the KKK. The only people who agree with that argument are like you and like your punk rock friends and your transgender friends. The rest of us who live on planet Earth actually don't think the New York City Police Department resembles the KKK at all, right? So what he's saying, and even though he's on the left, he's saying that basically the pro-Palestine movement has to rebrand in the way that you did, which you were quoting the Declaration of Independence before, right? The reason we believe in rights for Palestinians is because we believe in mainstream, traditional American values. It doesn't require you to have crazy left-wing ideas, but it's become a crazy left-wing thing.
They can't do that.
They cannot.
Because their argument isn't born out of logic. It is born out of the idea of oppressed versus oppressor, and of white people versus people of color.
And everything has to be shoehorned into that framework and that lens. And
so it'll never make sense because there's more nuance than that.
Right.
That's their flaw.
That is their flaw. And it's a fatal flaw. I mean, every time I watch protesters, I get so annoyed at them. And I'm like, these people are just incredibly annoying. And then I have to remind myself what I said before, which is that, well, at least these people are well-intentioned and they're sad that people are dying. And that's ultimately a good.
Yeah, but that's dangerous because the Bolsheviks were well-intentioned. I mean, communists throughout history have been well-intentioned. And look at where that's led.
Correct, but the wokeists who are protesting for Palestine are not putting people in work camps. I mean, let's not get crazy.
If you extrapolate backwards, I think the same people that are protesting for Palestine would have been the people that were championing locking people up for not wearing masks or saying that they shouldn't be admitted into hospitals if they weren't vaccinated. I mean, these threads are all connected. They might take a different face, but you just listen to them talk and look at their ideas, and it's like, oh, you're plugging into this slot. It's not a nuanced stance. You just track it out to where it inevitably goes, and it's that.
Mm-hmm.
And people die. And everyone wants to think that they can enact communism in some way where it's just this utopia. And how many times do you have to run up against the wall to realize there's a wall here. And if we try this, we're going to hit the wall. People like running into things.
I mean, I don't think it's that bad because I don't extrapolate it out, right? I just say, okay, what are they actually doing? They are advocating, I'll leave it at that. I think in general, they are well-intentioned. I understand that well-intentioned people can go wrong and can go into bad places. But I try to keep it to the fact of, okay, people are getting bombs dropped on their head. Protesting that is a normal, human, empathetic reaction, and that they care enough about people on the other side of the world and the fact that they're getting bombs dropped on their head. And that is a good thing.
But these are the same people that are pro the Ukraine war.
Probably.
So we're okay with bombs dropping on the heads of people that we don't care about. That's where if you look at the logic of it, it doesn't make any sense. It's almost more so, I mean, people aren't even talking about Ukraine anymore because this is now the issue at hand. And people think that Israel is just white people and it's attacking a place full of brown people. And perfect. That's even better than Ukraine because Ukraine is just white people on white people. So we've moved.
What did you think about the controversy about the police response to Cal Poly?
I mean, I don't know what you do in that situation. I think you don't let them take over the building in the first place if you can help it. But the optics of that cop getting hit on the head with that water jug are not great.
Just because it gives the left something to celebrate and kind of...
Well, it's become a meme.
It's become a meme.
Yeah, and now you just... I mean, optics for law enforcement are already so low, and that blows up online. It's just not great.
Did you think the response was like heavy-handed and disproportionate, or do you think you got to bring in the cops when people are occupying a building?
Well, here's my gripe. I once was disillusioned to the idea that colleges actually were foundational pillars of free speech, but at the time that was happening, I was no longer under that illusion. So I understood that if you break into a campus facility and barricade yourself in there and then start trashing the campus, there's going to be a response. So, I mean, if you go slap somebody and then they punch you, can you really be mad that the person punched you back for slapping them? It might not be great, but that's what happens. And they could have... The problem with the left is they have momentum and they have people that are willing to go out and protest these causes, but they don't have a leader that can utilize that power towards some good. So it's just chaos. They just enact chaos everywhere they go. There's no Martin Luther King. There's no... I don't even know who else that's the go-to one because he was so foundational as a representative for a movement in that way. There's nobody like that today. It's all fractured. And so it's just chaos. It's just, there's no coherence, there's no plan, but they have momentum and they have people that are actually willing to put boots on the ground. And if somebody would fill the void and say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go on the quad and we're going to just stay on the quad for as long as it takes. Set up camps. We're not going to trash the place. We're not going to leave a bunch of garbage anywhere. We're not going to graffiti the buildings, or we're going to walk through the streets. Not in the street, on the sidewalk. We're not going to block traffic. We're going to march. We'll march from Arcata to the courthouse and then stand around the courthouse. We're not going to block traffic. We're not going to piss people off. We're not going to turn people against our cause. We're going to do something effective to raise awareness. And we're going to do something that has substance. We're not going to try to get Cal Poly to divest from Israel, which I think they had some tie to some index fund that invested in Israel. But how about the homeless problem? at Cal Poly Humboldt. But, I mean, right? How about we do something that we can have a tangible effect on? Cal Poly's relationship with Israel is meaningless, but it's a virtue signal that people can get behind. And that ties back into the lack of a leader. A leader would say, let's do something that matters here, that we can have an impact on. Okay, we want to do Israel-Palestine. Let's figure out how we can do that. Maybe we stage walkouts and we accept that maybe we don't get our degrees and we get enough students where they have to take notice. And that sparks something. No students go to college class. We don't go to our classes. We might get rolled back. Are we willing to accept that? Are we willing to accept that maybe we don't graduate or people won't hire us because of the stance that we're going to take? Let's have some forethought. Okay, we're willing to do that. Nobody goes to class. And it only works if you've got enough people, but they have people that are willing to do this across the country. Let's do that. We're not hurting anybody. We're only affecting ourselves. But if we can get enough people not to go to class, the colleges are going to be forced to take notice. If we can get the colleges on our side, maybe we can get some political leaders on our side. Maybe that can reach the Senate. Maybe it goes to the House. Maybe people start noticing, hey, kids aren't going to college. They're not going to class. We need to do something about this. But when you give them a reason to hammer down on you, it diminishes the whole movement. And so everyone I talk to is pissed off at the protesters because they thrashed the campus and people don't like that. Thrashed Columbia. People don't like that. You're just turning people against your movement. That's why Martin Luther King was so effective, is that when you saw pictures of cops beating them and they weren't attacking back and they had done nothing wrong, they weren't throwing shit at cars or blocking streets, you couldn't help but be on their side. There was no out. That's the power, is you can't give people an out to turn against you. And that's all the left does now. They make it so easy to say, well, fuck the left because they're blocking traffic, they're attacking people, they're burning down buildings. There's no forethought, there's no cohesion, there's no leader. And so it's just chaos. And you can shit on them. And then nothing changes. Now I'll get off my soapbox.
No, that is pretty interesting. Yeah, I mean, and the thing is that the professors and the faculty seem to be they're putting out these statements in which they support the protesters, and they never distinguish. So for me, in my mind, it seems like for you as well, like I distinguish between protesting on the quad and taking over a building. Protest on the quad, you can say anything. And even if the school has like rules about what time you can have a gathering on the quad and stuff like that, I think. But even if you break those rules, I mean, you're still outside. Who cares, right? You're just doing your thing. But there's enormous difference between that and taking over a building. I mean, a small group of people are taking over a building. Hey, this other group of people are actually trying to go to college and like learn stuff and like develop skills so that they can make their lives better and make our society better by contributing more. I know it's a crazy concept. And then you ruin
graduation for them.
And you're just ruining everything for them. But then the professors come out and they say, we stand in solidarity with the protesters. And I'm like, dude, do you actually think so much of the place that you work that you think it's okay to just destroy the place where you work and disrupt its operations? You must really hate your job. You must think you're wasting.
Well, they're bought in. It's the inmates running the prison. They have to.
How do you mean?
Well, they're all these children in college having these ideas. It's not some random act. It's coming from the professors down and from the students up.
Yeah.
It's like a cycle. They're all bought into the same system. And so, of course, they're going to be on board. They have to be.
I mean, I kind of expect more from them. I expect them to be a little older, to understand.
Oh, well, yeah, you would hope so. But I think time and time again, we've been shown otherwise.
Yeah.
Is the disappointing fact.
And in one of their demands is that, the Cal Poly president should send a letter demanding a ceasefire. I'm like, bro, I do not want college presidents opining on U.S. foreign policy in their official capacities. This dude has a job. He's got to run this massive institution. You expect him to get informed on Israel-Palestine enough to write a letter to Congress?
Well, they want him fired now.
Yeah.
They want him to resign.
Now, that might be because they didn't like him anyway. It probably is. But just to sign a document that says we call on the president to call for a ceasefire, and I'm just like, bro, that is so far outside of what a college president should be doing. And luckily, you know, that all of a sudden there's now this change that's going on in a lot of colleges where they're adopting neutrality on political issues. I don't know if you've been following this, but they got themselves into basically what happened. This went before Congress. You know, it used to be that, okay, Trump gets elected, the university puts out a statement saying, we know how much pain this has caused our student body. We, are shocked and saddened and, you know, all this stuff. And it's like, why are you commenting on presidential politics? You're a school. Just run the university. Just keep going with the classes. You don't have to have U.S. politics hot takes, right? And so then when October 7th happened, they were supposed to opine on that because they're supposed to opine on everything because they've set up this paradigm. And then if you say, oh, I'm shocked by October 7th, then you've betrayed the left because, you know, you're basically showing sympathy for Israelis and not Palestinians. So you get into hot water and it creates this whole crisis because the normal reaction to 10-7, like it's easy to say, hey, I'm shocked by the election of Trump. But when 10-7 happens, the obvious reaction is to condemn it and to be shocked by it. But that's not the left-wing position. So now you're in a bind. What do you do? So then because of this, a lot of the schools have now said, okay, we're not going to opine on politics anymore. We're not taking stances on Trump. We're not talking about Israel-Palestine. We're not talking about anything. We're just actually going to, you know, run the college, which is what we're supposed to be doing beforehand, which I think is a very good change. I don't need schools or presidents commenting on foreign policy. That's my take.
Yeah, I agree with that. Teach. That's what you're there to do.
Yeah, and if you're
critical thinking,
if you're the president, then do your fundraising or whatever you do all day. I don't know what you do, but just do it, and you know, leave the hot takes to guys on YouTube and podcasts.
That's what we're here for. I don't know. It feels like the chickens have come home to roost, and this is what we get. This has been building, and now we're watching everything play out.
Yeah.
I don't know where. I feel like we're going to war. And I don't know if that's me being somewhat pessimistic or me actually looking at the circumstances playing out. I mean, I can't imagine that if Trump wins, he becomes the president. It just feels like they're so hell-bent on keeping him out. And then what happens if Biden wins? We have 4 more years of Biden? Or worse, Biden gets in, dies, and then we have Kamala for 4 years?
Projecting out 4 more years of deterioration of Biden is just almost unthinkable. If you just take the amount of deterioration he's had in the last 4 years, add that, but the deterioration accelerates the older you get, right? You fall off the cliff harder and harder and harder, like the rate of decline.
Oh, it's exponential.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, because it's painful. It's just painful watching him at this point where you're just like, dude, just go home and chill. You'll be fine, you know? And it's like, I don't like, a lot of people seem like, you know, because a lot of like MAGA will like take joy in like making fun of him, where I'm like,
it's sad.
He's just an old man. Like it's like and if he wasn't president, he'd be like any other old man. It's not like he's doing any worse than any other dude his age. It's just that he's 81 years old. He's looking like a dude who's 81 and just went through 4 years of a super stressful job.
And had major brain surgery.
Yeah. But most dudes 77 to 81 are not in a super high pressure job. It's crazy to project out the next 4 years. I mean, like what's going to happen? There's not going to be any leadership. Like all the administrators, all the, you know, the deep state, they're just going to have to do it on their own, which is quite bad. We're supposed to have the politicians who we elect be in charge and send down the directives to the lowers, to the middle management bureaucrats in the government, but we're not going to have any leadership. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you can look. I don't know what to do about voting for president because I don't like Trump, but I look at Biden for 4 more years and I'm like, this is obviously blatantly not cool. Guys, don't pretend you don't see it. Don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining, right? This is obviously not cool. Like, come on, we're talking about the president here. So I don't know what to do. I'm not sure how I'm voting. Maybe I won't vote, which is kind of like a cop-out. But I don't know what to do.
I haven't lived enough life yet to really make this statement, but if I was a betting man, I would assume that something happened before the election.
Meaning what?
I don't know. War. Biden dies and they put somebody else up on the ticket. China invades Taiwan. It feels like we're building to something. I mean, there's so many chaotic factors in play. Inflation, people are not happy, social unrest, Ukraine, Israel, how we're trying to implode the dollar. It feels like we're building towards something, doesn't it?
Well,
It feels like there's momentum towards the cliff. And the question is, how far away is the cliff? I mean, Russia being in Havana feels like a big step.
Okay, when you say they're in Havana, I mean, obviously there was the Cuban Missile Crisis, which I don't really know that much about from back in the day, but apparently it was just like where we were almost at war, whatever this was in 1963 against the Soviet Union because they had their missiles in Cuba. I mean, are you setting the stage for that happening again? I mean, I didn't. This is the first I'm hearing about Russia being in Cuba. I don't know. Like, what do they have in Cuba? They're building military bases?
No, I believe they're simulating war games.
Why in Cuba of all places?
To show the U.S., hey, this is after Biden okayed Ukraine striking in the heart of Russia. So now Russia's saying, okay, this is the game you want to play.
Oh, that's a disaster, dude. That's a total disaster. Yeah, that could escalate.
I mean, it seems like war with Russia is what our politicians would like to see happen. And the question is all of this going because they don't want Trump to win? Is there some... I mean, obviously, if you look back at Bush, the war was good for him. He got a second term. So maybe there's some element of that where they think if we could keep a war but not have it escalate fully, that Biden could stay in and we could be done with Trump, at least until somebody else runs. Then they don't have to try to figure out who replaces Biden, but not bring Kamala along for the ticket. I don't know. But it seems we're escalating. And we're escalating on multiple fronts. People are not happy about Israel and Palestine. The International Court of Justice has issued an arrest warrant or is considering issuing an arrest warrant for Bibi. And now the U.S. has imposed sanctions, I believe, on the ICJ. And then again, Germany saying we need to reinstitute a draft.
So
Macron saying we want NATO troops in Ukraine.
If Trump wins, what do you think his approach to Ukraine, Russia is going to be as far as these latest developments? I
don't know, because if it's full blown and he wins, we go to war still. Like, at what point does the train get so far down the tracks that you can't back out, right? If war starts up and then he wins, does he just say, okay, we're not going to war?
When you say war, I mean, you're talking about U.S. fighter planes and U.S. soldiers being in Russia? I mean, dude, it's a pretty crazy scenario.
How much crazier than where we are? We're basically at war with Russia to some extent right now, right? Our weapons, our planes, our troops are training Ukrainians. I mean, is it that much of a stretch to just replace Ukrainians with Americans? When we've gone this far?
Because most Americans are like me. Like, I'm not following Russia-Ukraine. But if U.S. troops were in Russia...
But we have U.S. troops in Ukraine.
Okay, but they're not in Russia. They're not fighting in Russia, right?
Okay, what if we have direct conflict with Russians in Ukraine and it's Americans? Because they're in Ukraine. Supposedly, they're not fighting Russians in Ukraine.
Working as advisors. They're
supposedly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's dicey.
I mean, that seems
dicey.
Crazy already that they would be in you. It seems crazy. All of it is crazy. So is it that much of a step that rather than advising, they just turn their guns towards the front line?
I mean, I'm not following this, like I said, but most people would be like me. Like, once Americans are dying, that's a totally different threshold. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to pay attention that much when we send weapons. We're always sending weapons to people, right? It's like I'm pretty...
But we're acting as if we're the sole determinators of this. So determinators of this. But we have another actor, and it's Russia. So our bombs, our planes bombing inside of Russian territory. At what point does Russia say, no, we're not doing this anymore? And what if they strike a facility in Ukraine that they know has American advisors? Then what? Do we say, oh, or what if Macron puts French troops and then those get killed and then France goes, like there's so many other actors that it only has to be a minute misstep and then NATO's at war. We're at war.
Yeah, I mean, my reaction to that is, yes, if Russia has an attack and it kills 15 American advisors, my reaction is we're out of there. Like, but it's all we're done. We're out.
Saying, oh, it's Russia doing this, but we're the ones pushing them further and further. So at what point do they get back into the corner that they now revert and go forward? Because we're the ones doing the pushing. So at some point, they might say, we're done being pushed on this.
Right. No, I understand that. I understand. You're explaining why you think it's bad that we're there. I understand that. It's just that, like, my response, the second Americans dying for Ukraine would be the craziest thing. Like, it has nothing to do with us. Like, it can't have less to do with us. I'd be against it. Almost the whole country would be against it. But yes, there are some kind of like George Bush Republicans who are still caught up in, well, we have to spread democracy and we have to protect the world order and the international framework of things. But most Americans, I don't think, are into that. I could be wrong.
Yeah, but most Americans aren't making the decision. It's a select few Americans who seem determined for this to continue. That's the thing.
And it's good for weapons manufacturers, for sure. Yeah, I know that. And the thing about the United States is that there are weapons manufacturers in so many different congressional districts, and there's like the supply chain of making weapons has so many different congressmen that that's why so many congressmen have trouble saying, hey, stop with all the weapons sales to everybody, because they've got their, constituents who are like, no, I work at the weapons manufacturing place,
Keep it coming.
Yeah, keep it coming.
And it's crazy. I would say that it's crazy that we would have troops involved in the Israel-Palestine conflict, but we built the pier. So I believe supposedly we had troops involved in the hostage rescue. I don't know if that was on the ground or just providing air support. I'm not familiar with that, but we are involved.
So this is, again, getting back into the propaganda. What I saw is that some people were saying that, and other people said, no, that's propaganda, and it's not true. But
we have been directly involved with Americans shooting down missiles. When Iran launched that attack, if you call it that,
right,
we shot down a lot of those missiles. The numbers are up
from the pier.
No, I believe from aircraft and from the ships that we have there. We've definitely been shooting down missiles prior to that as well. So we're directly involved on their behalf. I don't think it's that far. I think the way that we've escalated American troops being in direct combat, it doesn't seem that far of a stretch looking at how far we've already come. All the lines that we've placed and then just blatantly walked across. I think that this just happens. And it's not something that we're going to say, oh, Americans need to vote on this. It's going to happen, and then we're going to say our response is this: boots on the ground, direct conflict.
Okay, that's pretty depressing.
It is depressing. I don't know if I'm just being nihilistic about it or trying to read the cards or letting my imagination get away from me. I don't know. Maybe all of it.
I have not thought about it in these terms. But like I said, I'm not following Russia and Ukraine that much. It just seems, I mean, that would just be so tragic. But you're right that when you put advisors and you put, military people in
and
Ukraine,
are attacking targets,
and you give them, so again, basically we're back into having these proxy wars like we did throughout the Cold War, where you fund and arm conflicts and the conflict gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's kind of the same thing as what happened in the Cold War all the time.
Except this is right on. This is existential for Russia. This is right on. We're not talking about Afghanistan and Iraq.
Yeah.
Or Vietnam. We're talking about on the border of Russia.
On the border of Russia.
With a trade, like the Russian and Ukrainian economies are so intertwined. This is like if we had Alaska. If they were trying to encroach. And it's like, no, we're not. This isn't happening. We're not going to allow this. And our government's shady. Our government lies all the time. We can't even figure out what happened with COVID. And something happened and maybe we fudged it a little bit. And now we're at war. if they said there's a draft tomorrow, are people really going to take the time to figure out what's actually going on? Or are we just going to start shipping troops over there? And then once people hear people are dying and they're coming back in flagged coffins, it just goes.
Dude,
in the Gulf of Tonkin.
Yeah, dude, you're talking about a hot war in Russia. I mean, that would be
insane.
So,
but look at where we are. Look at where we are. How many lives have already been lost? It just doesn't feel like if this was, a year ago, big jump. But today, Russia and Cuba, it just feels like it's all gas, no brakes.
That is concerning. That Russia is that okay, we instigate something, Russia responds by doing war games in Cuba, which is like I don't
know if it's war games or drills. They're in the port of Havana,
and they're specifically trying to be public about it to send a message to the United States. It's basically like that they're playing public political games. But it's not
a coincidence that after Biden says Ukraine has the green light, that this happens. It's connected. Crazy time. And we're in here doing a podcast.
Yeah, we are in here doing a podcast.
Solving the world's problems.
We just need to talk about it more. That'll
well, oh man.
Is one not to switch subjects, but I will switch subjects.
Good, because it was getting depressing there for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was thinking about all those videos I watched of people getting blown up by drones, and it was getting dark.
Yeah, there are a lot of those on the internet for sure. There's Russian soldiers getting blown up as usual. I don't see Ukrainian. I see Russian soldiers, and then people saying, haha, the fuck around and find out, and it'll be some dude in the middle of a field and he's just getting blown up. It's like, yeah, I don't need to watch this again.
But switching topics.
Yeah, but switching topics, another one that you did that I really liked was you brought in that fighter, that UFC dude. He was going to have his first pro bout. Gabriel.
Yeah.
I had so many questions. I was like watching along with so many questions because, are you into UFC?
Yeah.
Oh, you are?
But I am a casual fan. Definitionally casual.
Okay.
That I can name off some of the big ones. I'll catch a fight if it's on where I'm at, but I'm not paying money for a pay-per-view fight.
Do you do any martial arts yourself?
I did some BJJ and Muay Thai for a little bit in high school.
What is BJJ?
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh, okay.
And then Muay Thai in high school. I was training with this lady who was a teacher. I don't know if she was at Lost Boys or somewhere. She was an instructor somewhere, and she would train clients out of her garage and had a pretty cool little setup. But no, I've been thinking about maybe going to Lost Boys and doing some no-gi stuff.
Nice.
Trying to get into it.
Nice. Yeah, after that conversation, I was like, oh yeah, I should go to this fight. I was going to text you and see if you want to go.
I wanted to go. I didn't make it.
I had to go out of town that weekend. Otherwise, I would have been like, dude,
we're going to go catch a fight at the casino.
Yeah.
That would be
so
fun.
I've never been to one in person, but I have friends who, not around here, but in other places who like it, who say, yeah,
they
going
do
to
those
fights.
Slap fights at the casino too. They've done that a few times.
What's that all about?
They just slap each other. They take turns slapping each other. It's huge online.
Really?
Oh yeah. I listened to a conversation with Dana White talking about it, and he was saying that it's
Is that girls or guys?
It's both.
Okay.
Just slapping the shit out of each other. It's crazy.
You have to do open hand.
Open palm.
Yeah, open palm.
And they have like a little, they can hold onto the table, and it's insane.
That dude was having his first big professional bout. That was super exciting. And what's the name of the famous guy who comes from Humboldt? He was
Cass Bell.
Yeah, Cass Bell was fighting that night also. So I was like, oh yeah, I should go see this. But yeah, I just had all these questions for him about how it works. I mean, I don't. It's such a crazy like thing to be involved, right? It's like I watch sports all the time. I try to play as much sports. I played sports in high school, et cetera, but fighting is a different, that's just a totally different universe of what it is.
You're going into a cage.
I don't really get it. Like the main thing I wanted to ask him is that like I get the wind knocked out of me really easy. Like when I played sports in high school, it would happen, because you're running into people and occasionally you just get popped and you're not expecting it. And then like if you punch me in my stomach, you're just going to completely incapacitate me, and I'm not going to be able to like defend myself at all. It's like I don't like fighters are getting popped in their stomach all the time when they get in close. You know, like when they're kind of like more grappling. I don't know, when they're clutching, whatever. I'm talking about boxing mainly now because that's more of what I've seen. So like I don't understand how like guys get punched over and over and over in their stomach, and they're just like keep going, and then they're punching back and they're defending themselves. How are they just like not falling down?
I think it's a different breed of guy that can just take that kind of punishment, you know?
Yeah, presumably dudes like me
and
don't
training,
go
if you know, you work on your core strength and just learn to take the shots, I guess, to some extent.
Okay, but here's another question that isn't really connected to your toughness. Like, I've heard a lot of people say, like, when you break a rib, that's like one of the most painful things to break, right? So like in like, you know, people say it hurts to breathe, it hurts to sneeze, it just hurts the whole day, right? So a dude like that, like, obviously I was only seeing him on camera, but he looks like he's got like my body type. Like he's super skinny. He's like a lightweight, right? He probably weighs like 160 pounds, something like that, you know? So how, like his...
he might be...
Well, he was probably shorter than me, yeah. So he probably weighs
I think
less
he was
than
like 140s maybe?
Yeah.
I might be making that up.
So a dude like that, like, he's got no padding on his ribs. How is he not getting his ribs broken?
But you're fighting somebody who also weighs that weight, right? It's not like he's going up against a heavyweight who is just insane knockout power. You're fighting somebody else that's
right. But if you have no
leaner.
fat around your ribs and you're getting just okay, but a 140-pound dude can do damage when he's a fighter. Or
yeah, but if you have abs and you have pretty good core strength, getting hit isn't as painful as if you've got, you know, a beer belly and you take a shot to the kidneys. Then this is coming from someone who is not taking a shot to the kidneys, so I'm just speculating here.
Okay, I mean, it just seems to me like it's less a question of strength; it's a question of how much padding you have here. Like I would expect a fat dude to suffer less because the fat absorbs the punch. It's
but then you don't have the stamina to keep going. I mean, those rounds, even if you're just fighting for 2 minutes, it's intense.
Yeah,
like you are getting drained. If you don't have cardio, you're fucked.
Right.
I'll have to ask him. I was thinking about reaching out to him. He's got a twin who is also a fighter.
Oh, really?
And I was thinking about bringing them both on and talking some shit.
Do you know how he did in that fight?
I don't know how it panned out. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, next time, let's try to go to Blue Lake.
That would be fun.
I would be into that.
Maybe for those slap fights, go check that out. That would be insane.
I'm definitely less intrigued by the slap fights.
You say that now, but we'll go home, watch a couple clips. You're gonna text me, say, Nick, we've got to go. This is insane.
Fair.
But they have some other ones. They have the UFC stuff, but they also they'll like do randoms and let random people get in there and fight. Not necessarily random, but people who aren't
like just dudes
competition
from
fighters.
Arcade and Eureka.
Yeah, I don't know if this was more so back in the day, but I heard stories when I was growing up that they would do fights, and it was like people who weren't in shape, weren't training, got into the ring and were fighting, like maybe an open call type thing where people sign up beforehand, and it's like, oh, it's a UFC fight, but these guys have never trained, and they might be going up against someone who has trained, just get the shit knocked out of them. I don't know. That would be fun. That'd be pretty cool to check out. I know they've done a few of those, and I haven't seen them.
Okay.
I think I was doing a podcast maybe that night. Something happened and I couldn't go. I wanted to check it out. After talking with him, I was like, oh, I was kind of invested.
Another episode that I watched.
We're going through like the highlights here.
Yeah, dude, I just want to tell you, I try to give you feedback because, you know.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I'm a big fan. So, you know, I just try to tell you what's been up. You had that filmmaker, Nicola Waugh or whatever. She was making a movie about the Yurok tribal revival. So I went to go see the movie after seeing the interview. And the movie smacked. The movie was quite amazing.
I don't think I saw that one, but I saw the one that she produced. I believe she produced. She was definitely involved. I want to say she produced. That was about some events unfolding in during a high school basketball game. Kind of interesting. I don't know if I saw the other one, but yeah, she was pretty cool. When she was on, she was talking about some guy that had a hamster farm or a gerbil farm. He had hundreds of them, and she was thinking about trying to reach out to him to make a documentary about that. It's just some dude living in Myrtletown that had all of them, had a ton of them, and had was hoarding them or maybe rescuing them. I don't know. The information was kind of skewed a little bit, but she was intrigued in that.
That's her next project.
We'll see. She was pretty cool.
That movie was really good. First of all, to go see it and see it on the big screen on campus. You
saw it up at Cal Poly?
Yeah, because there was a lot of really good drone footage, in particular drone footage that is close to the ground, which is a lot of what I like to shoot when I'm shooting with a drone. Like people think of a drone, it's like all high in the sky.
Overhead shots.
But when you're pretty close to the ground and you're moving pretty quickly, and it can be really cool. So they had just kind of like transitions between like various things that were happening in the movie. They would show like just like the Humboldt Coast and really cool shots of it. I really enjoyed that. That was really dropped in throughout the movie. But also like that movie was really good from like because the narrate, like from a plot development and story structure, it was stellar. Like the way sound bites and quotes were set up. Because that's the part that I'm good at. I'm not really that good a cinematographer, but I'm good at like developing a tight story. And that movie had a very tight story that I really appreciated, and it was just interesting throughout. Yeah. So
I did a podcast with Justin Grimaldo.
He was the next guy I was going to bring up.
Man, have you seen his project with Viltrakis Design and Build?
No.
Joey Viltrakis. They put out this. It's like a home builder series. I think on Joey's YouTube. I think it's Viltrakis Design Build on YouTube.
Okay.
It's pretty insane. From a narrative standpoint, I mean, you should check it out. It's pretty cool. I think I shared it on my Instagram or something, but because I finished episode 2 and I was like, this is insane.
What is happening? What is it?
They're just going through the process of building this house, but they're also going through the backstory of how Viltrakis Design Build started, how they kind of came together, and they're doing shots of building the house, the work that they're doing. Then they're cutting to the guy whose house it is that they're building, and he's providing some narrative around it and how he found them and chose them for the project. And then they're cutting back to people that are working with Joey and how they came into the project, how it all started. It's pretty cool. And just from a cinematography standpoint, the shots that they do are pretty insane. I mean, it's great footage, great narrative. You get invested in them. I mean, it feels like you're watching a show that should be on Netflix. It's on YouTube.
Where is this builder located?
He's here.
He's here?
It's a local, yeah. A local company.
Oh.
I think he was maybe born in Rio Del.
Okay.
Maybe I might be making that up. But local.
Okay.
You got to check it out.
Yeah, I'll
Justin puts out some insane. That guy is crushing it. I got to bring him back in here.
So, okay, it was on my list to check out what he's doing, because I've never actually watched his work, but I was just listening to what he was saying about doing weddings, and when he was saying, like, basically the documentary style in depth, when he said if you pay him the most amount of, like, the big project, if you want him to do like the deluxe, is that he'll make a documentary, and he was talking about having 20 mics. He said he wants to build up to 20 mics. So I'm like imagining what he's talking about. Like, if you're 20 mics is a lot of mics, and that means the amount of footage, and you're listening to what everybody has said throughout a 5-hour wedding. Like,
his wedding videos are insane.
So you watched them?
Oh yeah, I went down a rabbit hole prior to him coming on and watched. I might have watched all of them that are on his YouTube. I think it's Sightseer Productions.
Okay.
Insane.
Oh, is it?
I mean, they're complete strangers, and you're watching them get married, but you're invested.
Oh my God, that's a huge compliment, dude. That you would actually sit and watch.
I would watch them. I did watch them. I would recommend people watch them, even if you don't know the couples. It's insane. And that documentary style that he brings to those weddings is kind of what he brought to the Viltrakis project. So if you like that, or vice versa, it would definitely be worth checking out.
So in the wedding videos, how many people like sound like like they have a lapel mic on? Like, because it's hard to get. You got to have good sound.
I think all of the important people. So the people giving speeches when he cuts back to the bride and groom telling the story. I mean, he does pretty well on sound. I don't know how many mics he used during his previous ones, but I don't recall a moment when I'm listening to the wedding ones thinking, "Oh, this sounds terrible." Yeah.
Right. Cool. Okay, I got to because I enjoyed the conversation. I watched that whole episode. I enjoyed that conversation.
Cool guy.
Yeah, he seemed like
he was just out here doing what he loves.
He seemed like he was on top of his ish. That is super cool. Yeah, when he was talking about having 20 mics, I'm like, bro, that's like going way deluxe for a wedding. Like
He's serious about it. He's got a ton of equipment. I mean, I've only seen his equipment on Instagram.
Same. I see his equipment on Instagram. His gear is out of control. Yeah.
He knows what he's doing. He's got time coders. He's got all of his mics, his camera. He's got a serious camera rig.
Yeah.
All of his lights.
Yeah. He's got like tracks, to make the sliding shot. He's got everything. Yeah, his Instagram is quite interesting. Yeah, that was cool. I think you had them pretty close together, those two filmmakers, because I always want to watch filmmakers. And that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I gotta get him back on. And I know there's another guy, Tex Kelly,
his buddy that he works with.
Yeah, I know. I'm pretty sure he was involved. I've seen him. I'm pretty sure he was involved in the Viltrakis one too.
Okay.
And he was big on TikTok, I think. I think that he blew up on TikTok and got a bunch of traction, maybe with his dad.
Okay.
I gotta get those guys on. And Joey, I gotta bring Joey on too, because you gotta watch that project. It's insane. It feels like you're watching something that should be on Netflix.
Okay.
And it's on YouTube. They're pretty short. I think the first one's 10, 15 minutes, maybe.
I mean, is it blowing up with hundreds of thousands of views? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's probably got a couple 100,000 views. And it maybe came out, I think the second one dropped maybe a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
So it's blown up. And I don't think he was, I think the YouTube channel might have been built for this. So to gain that kind of track, I mean, I don't know what they're doing on the back end, but it's worth checking out. I can't sing the praise of it enough. It was pretty insane.
It's hard to get views when you don't already have views and don't already have an audience. But that's the thing about YouTube, is that if people like your stuff,
it's the great equalizer.
If the first 4 people that YouTube shows it to, if 3 of them click on the thumbnail and 2 of them watch the whole thing through, you'll start this snowball effect.
Done. And
you can get big very fast. It is a meritocracy in that sense, I think, at least.
Unless you're talking about something controversial, and YouTube says, we're going to lock this one in the dungeon.
Unless you're on the blacklist, yeah. But a building show or wedding videos probably don't fall in that category.
It's interesting, yeah. I mean, even his wedding stuff, it's worth checking out. Even if you're like, I'm not really into weddings. Like, I'm not watching wedding videos, but I would watch his just because it's narrative driven in a really cool way, where you're just, I don't know these people, but I'm invested in their story now, and how they got married and how they found each other.
And is he bringing pretty big crews, or?
I don't know. I don't know what his crew looks like. I don't know how many guys he has. I think his brother works with him.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't speak on that. I don't think I asked him that.
Cool.
I would assume it's probably pretty close to a skeleton crew. I don't think they've got like 20 guys running around.
That's Humboldt. Yeah. Yeah.
But a cool concept. I'm going to make wedding videos cool.
Yeah.
Who thinks that?
That is a pretty novel concept.
Who thinks that, and who actually does it?
Because in the world of videographers, it's like wedding videos are always such a obvious route if you're trying to be independent and make some money. But at least when I've talked about it with people that do it, it's like, oh, it sucks so bad, it's so horrible. And if he's actually like feeling it, that's just like amazing. And then you can make money as an independent video producer doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the obvious thing. It's the obvious thing that people need video for and are willing to spend money on. Right? It's their one time. They're not gonna, they're gonna spend a lot of money on the wedding video and the wedding photographer. It's kind of like a thing. That's cool.
That's my idea. I think I was talking to Nicole about this, that I've got an idea not even an idea. I have a rough opening for a short film I think that would be cool to make. And I got to reach out to Justin and say, hey man, how can we collab on this? Because I would want him to direct it for sure. That guy's it's crazy watching somebody when you can see their talent kind of bleed through their work. Like, oh, this person not only knows what they're doing, but it's kind of pouring out of them. And I get that sense watching him do his thing. It's like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
That's an interesting thing, watching that.
That's a big compliment.
And you can see the passion kind of pour up through the cracks, I guess.
Right. Yeah, well, I need inspiration to get back into my groove.
What's going on with you? What's the work situation?
I'm in down phase.
Yeah, you were saying that. What's going on?
Yeah. Let's see.
Just life.
I'm at
just the relationship angst.
I'm at risk of turning this into a therapy session.
Okay,
Like, I don't know how to like start it without like making it into a huge thing.
I think that chair reclines. You want to kick back? We could do the therapy 101.
So how was your childhood? No.
Take me back.
Yeah.
Set the scene.
I have not produced a news story since last August. It's pretty bad.
Wow.
Pretty bad.
I thought I was dragging my feet with the bike.
Yeah, dude. That's why I'm very forgiving, dude. So I'm not sure whether I'm going through a shift where I'm getting away from news reporting, video work. I'm not sure what's happening. Part of what happened is that I lost my freelance gig with Keat as far as making money off the videos that I make, and I don't have another customer, and I don't make money on my own site. So if I was going to make a video, it's going to be like it was before I got like I was at the very beginning, where I don't make any money. That's pretty rough because of the time investment and because I frequently have to hire people to make the video. At the same time, in the fall, I got a series of gigs making videos for people. One of the experiences was very negative. I had a client. The client acted in just an insanely unprofessional way. I got extremely angry at the client, but without losing my professionalism and cool. I just was kind of like internally very angry at what was happening with the client. And it was a very good paying gig. So I was, and I did all the work. And I felt I did a really good job. And the gig was very challenging because I was making a video for a festival and the festival kind of bombed. And so I had to make a hype video for a festival that kind of bombed.
Oh, that's challenging.
Which was very challenging. And I think I did a pretty good job.
So was the client taking out their frustration on the bombing on you?
No, the client was just acting unprofessionally because I think the client is just clueless.
So that kind of burned you a little bit from the creative aspect.
Yeah. So I did it, and then I got very angry about getting my payment, which was basically late, and the client was uncommunicative, et cetera, et cetera. It's possible that that's what set me into my funk because I was just really pissed off and just annoyed. And that happened, and so combine that with the fact that I don't have an avenue of actually making money. I know, novel concept, right? It means that I have not made a video since then, which is really bad. I also I'm not working that much. Like, I'm hanging out listening to podcasts a lot, watching podcasts a lot. I don't have that much work. I've had my part-time job with Access Humboldt for years and years. I've always worked for them, but it's like, it's like 6 hours a week. So I'm picking up some random gigs here and there, but I'm hanging out a lot. At the same time, and this is what we were talking about dating at the beginning of this conversation, it seems like I've hit this phase where I start to realize that, hey, everybody else is spending time with friends and family, right? That's what makes life meaningful. I have no family, I have no partner, and I have friends, but I don't hang out with them that often. I pretty much hang out by myself a lot. And that's always been fine for me. I like to hang out by myself, but I might be reaching the end of the line as far as how much, my life has always been about me and my personal evolution and what I'm doing and what I'm trying to achieve. And there's a reason everybody says the good life is to have a family and kids and all this stuff. And so I've kind of hit that kind of like, oh shit, now it's too late. I'm not going to have kids when I'm 50 years old, but I need to kind of figure out what's up. So that's the basic summary.
That's a lot.
I know. Now, I want to give this disclaimer. I mean, not that maybe anyone watching cares or listening, but you care probably, at least on some level. I don't like in general, I'm a pretty happy person. I have like a very happy, optimistic outlook on life. So it's not like I'm suicidal or I'm in a depression. No, it's nothing like that. Like I'm not suicidal.
I didn't get that vibe.
I'm not even depressed. I'm just in, relative to my normal pretty high level of happiness, I'm more in a valley of like mediocre. Yeah, I don't really have that much interesting stuff going on, and I'm hoping to rebound and figure it out. So that's where hey, do I need to move to the Bay? Do I need to move to Portland? Do I need to change up something? That's where all that comes from. So
it's one of those times.
Yeah.
Kind of like maybe a rut or a reflective period where you're reevaluating everything.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. I feel like I'm there in some ways.
Okay.
Just, what are you doing with your life? I think some of that for me stems from the fact that I wasn't recording for a month. And so I was just in here building and kind of spiraling a little bit, thinking, why? With this, it was hard because I was, I'm throwing a lot of money out of it. There's no return. And I'm thinking, am I just fucking over my life investing in this thing that I'm going to be 80 sitting here with a microphone, not able to hear, barely able to talk. There's going to be one listener in the corner saying, yeah, you can do it. I think those times are good in the sense that it forces you to think and to try to discover what it is that you really want.
Totally.
And it's understandable. I mean, that was one of the lessons I gleaned from this period this far, is that I have newfound respect for the people that do quit, that are trying to pursue something that they want. They've been investing time, and then they reach a point where they just say, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to say I didn't have respect for those people, but I didn't fully understand it. And now I kind of do, because it's hard. And it's hard throughout it, but there are periods where it's harder, where you're thinking, man, I don't have a girlfriend, not seeing my friends, I'm not hanging out with family, I'm not building relationships, I'm not fulfilling that side of my life. And what am I getting out of this? Is the trade-off really worth it? Am I sacrificing for a black hole that is never going to provide anything, that I don't even know what I would want it to provide, and I'm just chasing emptiness just to wake up one day thinking, man, I wish I would have given up, or not given up, but course corrected a decade ago? I don't know. I don't have those answers. But I think that I have more respect now for the people that have at least tried, regardless of if it's panned out or not. Because it sucks. And being in the suck is painful sometimes. But what if tomorrow was the day that you did make it? That's where I go back to. What if you just had to endure the suck for one more day and then everything changed? But what if it doesn't change?
Correct.
What if there's parties down in the Bay Area where you could be meeting some hot 50-year-old and she's perfect and she doesn't have kids and she likes you and she's trying to move it off of Tinder and you guys could go out and see if there's a vibe? I don't know. What if you meet her here? She's listening to this podcast thinking, I don't have kids. I've got a cool vibe.
Should I use your podcast to market myself on the dating scene?
You know what's funny? I have been thinking, what would it be like to not have this be a part of the podcast, but to do a dating show in Humboldt? Because I've got the space, at least for 4 people.
On video, you mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It would be a production of a dating show in Humboldt. I've been kicking that around. I don't know what format, I don't know if it would be shot here or if we would do it, try to see if we could find a bar that would be willing to shoot this or let us shoot there, and then...
So would this be like the old school dating shows where it's like there's a girl in a chair and there's like 3 guys and she's like, contestant number 1, where would you take me on a romantic evening?
I don't know. I would want it to be funny.
Okay.
But I think the humor would come naturally from it. I don't know what I have given less thought than the amount of time I've been talking about it just now.
Okay.
But that's been in the back of my mind of would that be something fun to do?
Sounds pretty fun.
I got a ton of equipment. I just don't have the ideas quite yet. But that would be cool, right?
Yeah, it sounds fun and funny.
A dating show in Humboldt.
Here's the question I've wanted to ask you for a while. Let's say let's say one of the local media outlets said, all right, we're looking to have like a podcast, and they come to you and they say, all right, we'll hire you sell us basically your channel for free. Let us take over your channel. We'll try to blow it up using our already existing audience, and we'll take all the YouTube revenue. But at the same time, we're going to pay you full time. You can quit your upholstery gig or whatever you're doing, day job, and you can and you have all the creative control. And now that you're doing this full time, you got to do more guests, you got to have more episodes. But you're now on our payroll, and so now you have your full time job. What do you think of? What would you do about that?
I couldn't do it.
You could not do it.
I couldn't do it if I would let them license the content, kind of like what Joe Rogan did with Spotify. I couldn't give up any percentage of the show or any control aspect or any, oh, you can only post it here. I couldn't do that. I couldn't give, it wouldn't be what it is. And I don't even know what it is yet, but I know that it's not what it will be. But it only gets there if I don't, I can't let go of the control.
What does licensing mean specifically?
So they would maybe post some of the content on, like if they had a big YouTube show, kind of like a TV deal. So maybe I can only release the podcast on their network, but I still own it and it's for a set period of time, and then I still have all control. So my YouTube would still be there. Maybe I wouldn't upload those to YouTube until after the contract ends, but they're out there. Kind of a license deal. But it wouldn't work if they were like, give us your show. We'll own it, but you'll have creative freedom. We'll decide what we do with it. I couldn't do that.
Okay.
Because then what if I want to talk to somebody that's crazy and they say no, or they don't like the direction of this conversation, or they don't like that guest?
Right. So that's the drawbacks of it. But the plus side is that you get to quit your day job, and you have
life doesn't suck. You've got time.
You're like a full-time podcaster, killing it, bro. What's
resources?
Up? Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
Okay. All right.
I couldn't do it. The money would be nice, but it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work for what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I've thought about.
But man, it would be nice.
Yeah,
man, it would be nice.
Totally, dude.
Couldn't do it.
I respect that. I think about what it would be like to work at Redwood News, where I used to work, and local news station, and what it would be like to be the news director there, because I think I could do a good job as the news director there. Obviously, there'd be tons of things I had to have to learn, but there would also be skills that I could bring that I don't think their previous news directors really bring. And I think, I used to work there, not on air, but in the tech room, on the tech side. And I just saw all these problems that,
nobody was addressing.
I have the skills to resolve, but that I wasn't hired to resolve. It's totally outside my thing. So I was just sticking to the tech. But as far as the content and the artwork, basically, basically what I saw at that station is what inspired me to create my TV news writing channel, because I'm like, there's so much low hanging fruit here. This could be so much better, and if people can just show them what to do. It's like, well, if I was the news director, I would show them what to do, and it's not that complicated. It's a formula, basically. Someone needs to teach them the formula. That's the goal of my channel, but my channel really hasn't taken off much, and I haven't uploaded to it now in a couple of years, which obviously it's not going to do anything now. Unless I start producing more content. But yeah, so I think about that, and I was like, oh yeah. But then it's like, yeah, but I'd be working for a corporation that would have tons of bosses above me. I would have to, on whim, change everything I'm doing based on what some guy in Atlanta says, and a guy I've never met. I get one email will change my whole life. I have no control over anything. I'm in part of this huge system. It's gonna suck. So it's
trade-offs.
Yeah, trade-offs. So, so what I have now, yeah, it's all pure and great and all, but like I'm not producing anything because I don't make any money off it. It's like, yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Purity is easy when nobody wants your content.
Yeah.
It's easy to say, no, I turned down the deal because there's no deal on the table.
Right.
So maintaining creative freedom is not hard. Are they looking for a news director?
No, they have one right now.
You could apply and say, hey, your news director their channel kind of.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but what I would do is my old boss, who's still there, we have a great relationship. She has texted me in the years since I've worked there to just check in and say hi. And like I'll comment on Facebook on one of their stories, and she'll be like, haha, that's funny, blah, blah, blah. And then say like, oh, this is going on behind the scenes, and she'll tell me about the station. She obviously appreciates me. And
you guys still have a rapport.
Yeah. And she's told me we ran into each other in Winco one time, and she was just like, oh, you can come back whenever you want for sure. You know, she obviously likes me as an employee. So and they run through news directors, you know, at least they have in the last few years. So it would be the type of thing where I would just text her and say, hey, by the way, if your news director ever quits or leaves or whatever, I might be into it. But I've never gotten to that stage because of the control issue, because it's so corporate, dude. TV news is so corporate. Like all these, when you brought in like Danya and you brought in Sophie Lincoln, like they're working in this crazy corporate environment. And it's just tough, man. Like I want to maintain some of my individuality and humanity, you know. And you're just like a blow up doll. You're like the AI human that's on TV news, man. It's rough, I think. But I mean,
you think you could make it work? Is that something that you're seriously considering, or is that something you're considering kind of given your current circumstances where you're like, I gotta fucking figure this out?
No, it's something that I'm considering because I know that it's within the realm of what my skills are and what I have to offer. And because I can't make it work on my channel, on the tutorial channel, on the news writing channel, I'm like, well, I've always known the best way to make it work, there's already an infrastructure that exists that has all these new people running through it who need instruction. It's an obvious captive audience. They would have to listen to me if I was hired. It's their boss, right? And it's not a question of forcing them. You know, there's different levels of motivation when reporters come through, just like in any other business. Like some people are just, well, they had to major at something in college, and then they have some job, and they do it, but they don't really care. But there's other people who come through who are desperate to get better and who are going to the top and who want to learn. You can just tell by interacting with them. I interacted with people that ran the gamut, you know, and all points in between. So that those people who really want to learn would be super fun to interact with. And to be clear, I would learn a ton also. So it's that corporate aspect that really, like if there was a locally owned, that like a Humboldt TV station that did daily news, I'd be super into it. But that's the thing though, there never is something like that because it's so expensive. You need this massive infrastructure, this huge company that has all of their how to do it dialed in. It's very rare, like almost basically corporate news, like on TV, the only news that exists really is corporate news, right? They're independent news. Yes, there's Democracy Now. There's Tucker, but Tucker's not doing a bunch of stories. He's just doing one sit-down interview. And he's also came to social media. He came to Twitter with already a massive audience built in.
He can do that.
Guys like me cannot do that. So, it's really, TV news is very limited in what, it's not like writing where like there's tons of people who are successful as independent writers on the internet, you know? So, I mean, I just struggle with that. Do I really want to be? When I was in the corporate environment, I was working in the control room. But the thing is that like, there's like this total divide between the people who are on air and the people who are in the tech room. The tech room is just like a bunch of bros. Like, and the on air people are they came out of college and they were trained in this and they're very fancy people. And, you know, it's a different vibe that I would always joke about and point out and note to the bros in the tech room. As like, oh, we got to interact with the fancy people now. You know, we're just low people over here. Even though a lot of the tech room work is super challenging. I mean, directing TV newscasts is very complicated and challenging. It's one of the more challenging jobs I've ever learned. It was extremely challenging, actually, I should say. But yeah, I mean, it's my job prospects are not amazing.
Well, you could give it a shot and see if it works. Maybe it won't be as bad because you'll have a little more power. You're obviously not going to be the top dog.
Yeah.
But news director carries some weight.
Yeah, it does.
And worst case, you say, no, this is not what I'm about. Screw it.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, I'm out.
Well, but the thing is that also when I have news jobs, I put my all into it. Like when I've had various jobs, And then on my own site, I'm all in. And the thing is, like, when you're going all in, for what purpose? To make this corporation a few extra bucks? Like, that's ultimately what you're there for, is to make a bunch of randos who you're never going to meet a few extra bucks. How is that meaningful as a way to live your life? Like,
I was listening to Rick Rubin talk, going back to the Rubins.
Yeah.
And he was posing this idea that maybe your passion doesn't have to be your job. Maybe your passion is something that fulfills you, and your job is something that you do to get by so that you can focus on your passion. And maybe it doesn't have to be that forever. Maybe that's just something that is for a period in time that you balance that out, and then you can pivot that into your passion. I don't know. But I thought that that was interesting. And maybe that's what this would be, is something, maybe the news director thing, you could still go all in because you care about the work that you're doing, but maybe that's just something that fuels the passion of your channel. Maybe that provides the resources that you could funnel back in, or maybe you find some other passion along the way by doing that news director job. You find this other niche and you're like, oh, that's something I really care about. I'm going to lean in there.
But if I'm doing the news director deal,
you're not going to see any of that.
I'm not going to be also doing my channel. I mean, the news director thing is going to be all in. You got to go in. I mean, part of my complaint about the previous news directors is I don't think they worked very hard. I think they kicked it a lot during the day. I think they hung out. I don't think they did anything.
But maybe you could then change that organization in that way.
Yeah, I could.
And bring a new level of vigor to it, a new element.
That's part of my vision, is that I would just be much more energetic. Like, how hard are you working? That's a big question with employees. Like, just forget about your talent. How hard are you working? Like, and I just get the vibe that some of the previous news directors have just spent a lot of time hanging out, and I wouldn't do that. But what that means is that, especially because news it's not just during the hours of the day, there's also the 11 o'clock newscasts, and part of the job of the news director is to be watching all of the different casts and figuring out how we can contribute, how to make it better, evaluating the employees, etc. I wouldn't be spending that time on my YouTube. I'd be watching the station, you know? You have to do a good job.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know. I mean, you could, even if it's that's how I've looked at a number of jobs, is it's just a springboard to gain enough finances to pivot back to what I'm doing. And so you work diligently and you're focused on your work to be able to finance for me, it's been a continuation of this. I'll work a job for a couple months to get enough money to then pivot back to this and keep this going. And then when the funds start to dry up, you lean more into the work. And then when you have enough to kind of float for a little bit, you lean back into this.
So are you getting like construction jobs that are just lasting a few months at a time?
I've got various gigs. I've got a part-time job that's been pretty consistent now that I do in the mornings. And then various construction, landscaping, I'll do everything. I'll mow yards. That's kind of all of it funnels back into this. This is the great money pit of my life. Some people get cars, try to restore them. I went down that route, thought I learned my lesson. Clearly not, because this is more expensive than those have been. But everything funnels back to I mean, obviously this thing was crazy.
Dude.
And I'm sure the evolution after this will be fortunately more crazy. Hopefully there'll be some funds lined up for that one, but it all comes back to this. But I don't have a wife and kids. I don't have a family. Right. I'm flaking on my relationships and my friendships to go back to this. So you make choices. And then hopefully at the end of the day, you can live with those.
The main person you're hanging out with is your dad, because he's in on building.
My dad, yeah. I think it's probably my dad and then the guest are the two most people that I see.
Wow.
And my mom and my sister. But I mean, I have friends who I care about and love who are raising kids that I don't see because they have the weekends off. I'm working on the weekends. All of my free time is in this. And sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow. And it's like, damn, haven't seen your friends in a couple of years. And you're like, oh, I'm just fucking doing the podcast. Just going crazy in a studio.
Speaking of your friends, there was one episode where you brought on a couple of bros from high school. And you were talking about them working road crew and stuff. And it was a really good episode. It's so funny that I watch these random episodes. Like, you're just talking like when you brought me on first time, like, I at least had like a topic. Like, I'm this news reporter. Like, I know you don't give formal introductions, but like,
you had some background.
Yeah. These guys, they're just coming. I mean, they're they're doing their thing, which is cool, but their main qualification is that they're your bros. But that's the thing about podcasts, is that it's about the dynamic a lot more than it's about what the person's doing in the world. It's about the chemistry between the people talking. At least that's what I sense. So much of TV is about that. It's about the vibe rather than the topical matter.
The substance in some case.
Yeah.
It all goes back to the vibe. Relationships.
I was super stoked that you were just like, that you guys were like old bros and we're just saying, going over random stuff. It's like, why do I care about that? I don't know, but I found it entertaining. It was enjoyable.
That's what's surprising to me, is that episodes, not that this was one of those, but sometimes I'll do an episode and I'll think, man, that one sucked. And then that'll be the one that people will say, oh man, I love that episode.
Right.
Thinking, gee, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know what works, what doesn't. I just try to show up.
Right.
That's my job. Just show up and let it be what it is.
I got to watch the Miles Slattery, because that's a good summary of what's going on in Eureka. I haven't checked in on Eureka politics lately, so I'll hit up the Miles Slattery episode.
Yeah, he was an interesting one.
What's he?
Interesting guy, yeah. I enjoyed talking with him.
Okay.
He'll probably be back on. We'll probably have more to talk about. We covered the bowl bouts, all the hot topics.
Oh, that's right up my alley. Okay.
Bringing down the 3 lanes to 2. We covered some.
You're getting all into my...
We covered a lot on that.
Okay.
Interesting guy. Yeah, you should check it out.
Cool.
The housing, the link housing, all of that.
Right.
Parking lots. We covered all the bases.
Yeah, he's got that initiative coming up on the fall ballot, which is controversial about.
Yep.
Yeah. That would probably be really informative. Cool.
All part of the fun.
Huh.
Just another day of podcasting, just talking about random shit.
Cool.
And then potentially a dating show. I'm gonna kick that around and see how that would. Maybe that'll be on the docket. Do something with that. We'll bring you in, see if we could find some ladies in Humboldt.
I mean, I'd probably be interested in being if you actually get to that point. I mean,
I'm gonna have to now, since we've been talking about that. Now
you've put it on the record.
I put it on the record. I'm gonna have to do something with it. I just don't know what the form would be. We'll do something.
Do you know what I'm talking about with those like old school shows where you have like one girl and you have her potential
they
suitors?
have newer versions of that where they'll be in like a warehouse. This is like the younger generation doing this.
Okay.
And they'll have like a curtain and the guy's behind the curtain and then the girl standing off to the side and with the like host, and he's asking them questions and she's like, okay, how do you feel about this?
Okay.
What random shit though. I don't know if it would be that format or a bar scene. I feel like almost doing it in front of a live audience would be interesting. Like if you could plan a night at one of the bars around here and make sure that you have people that are wanting to do it and then do it in front of people at the bar. But you'd have to moderate heckling, but you'd also want them to be engaged somewhat, maybe do blindfolds.
The bar idea seems to me like that's down the road after trying it out here.
Giving it a shot.
You have 100% control about everything that happens here. It's much easier for you to set up your video and audio here. Like this is just
contained environment.
Yeah, you have so much more control. And you know, if you do it here, you can just produce the video. If no one watches it, whatever. Like
there's no outside investment.
Yeah, it's a very quick thing and it's much simpler.
I wonder. It could bring. I mean, it would. If I did it here, I would have. It would be the person who's trying to date and then 2 candidates. You would have to blindfold them, or maybe do like a sheet down the middle. I'd have to. I'm gonna kick around some ideas now that we're talking about it.
Right, because the format is that the boy and the girl, the man and the woman can't see each other before the cameras start rolling, right? Because we don't want to have 20 minutes.
Yeah, because once you can see each other, then attraction comes into play and it can kind of, you'd want that to be like the final reveal. Is okay at the end, you think you like this person, you do the reveal. Is there attraction? Are you guys going to go on a date? What are we doing here?
Right.
I don't know. Or I don't know. I'll kick around some ideas, or I could revamp the space and turn the table and then have a couple people off to the side. You wouldn't be sitting down, but you'd still have the mics. I could boom one in from the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Dating in Humboldt.
Dating game, Humboldt.
We need a better name, but we'll kick it around.
That's
kick it
cool.
Upstairs, see what happens. I think that'd be fun. I think there are a lot of people that would be down to do that.
That sounds interesting.
a fun way to get people out. You would know that they are interested in dating somebody. See if the vibes fit.
Right. And so, yeah, I mean that's a funny idea. I mean the other thing is, as far as live audience, I mean you could do it in a bar, but then
it would be fun if it goes well. But if the audience is wasted and they're heckling and it goes sideways, you can't control that environment.
There's so many variables if you're doing it for a live audience. Even if there's not alcohol involved, it's just much more complicated.
Wonder if they'd be like, we could find somebody who has like a vacant warehouse, maybe down in Old Town or something, and then just set up for that and shoot a couple and see. Because then you'd have a space, you could contain it a little bit. There'd be no live audience, but you could bring in a lot of potential candidates for dating. Because I think you would want, I don't know if 2 would be enough. Two's kind of limited.
It's sketchy if there's only 2.
Yeah,
2
you
seems...
want like 5 or 6.
Right.
And then you can play off that a little bit more. Idea's starting to take shape. Might be something. Might be something there.
That's cool.
See what happens. Eric, let's get out of here, man.
Okay.
We did almost 4 hours, 3.5 hours. I don't know what time it is.
Whoa, that's a long conversation, dude.
It's 5:30. We did 3.5 hours.
Okay, I'm going to the bathroom, then I'm leaving.
Wait, plug. Do you want to plug where people can find you, all of your stuff, your socials?
Yes, I do want to do that. Thank you.
That's what I'm here for.
So I am a news reporter. I cover, although I haven't produced any stories in a while, I cover news primarily in Arcata. The name of my channel on YouTube and on Facebook is Arcata News. Arcata News on Facebook and YouTube. I like to cover large development projects, but it can be just any topics. I've covered wind energy. I've covered the Arcata Gateway in the past. Those are two of my main topics. So check out those channels. And then I'm also on Instagram at Arcata News. And I am also on Twitter. If you want to, check me out on Twitter at Eric_Black3, at Eric_Black3. That's ERIC.
All right. This was fun, man.
Thanks.
We'll do it again.
Nick.